Chapter 1019 Alarming the Half-Martial Ancestor. Chapter 1019 Alarming the Half-Martial Ancestor. Who is it? Who is establishing a Dao? Desolate Martial wishes to establish a Dao and impart martial to all living beings? How ambitious! This is a stir that can only be triggered after a perfect Dao heart is established alongside the recognition of many ancient mighty figures. There's going to be a massive change in the cultivation world. Instantly, countless experts of the sects appeared and lamented. Glass Palace. A middle-aged man in a rainbow-colored Taoist robe looked in the direction of the middle continent with a dark expression, his eyes filled with endless rage. The void around him trembled. This was the power of the conjoined body realm, shaking the void. The surrounding cultivators, including Dharma characteristic Dao lords, were silent out of fear of disturbing the sect master of Glass Palace who stood before them. Ever since Dao Being Glass passed away in the Dao inheritance ground a day ago, the entire Glass Palace had fallen into this stifling atmosphere. A titular disciple killed by a nascent soul was something that had never happened in history. Titular disciples were the face of the super sects and possessed terrifying combat strength. It was rare for them to die prematurely. They were almost invincible among their peers. Even if titular disciples were to clash against one another, while victory could be determined, it would be way too difficult for them to kill one another. As for cultivators with higher cultivations, they were wary of the super sects behind the titular disciples and would not dare to attack them. Therefore, it was extremely difficult for titular disciples to die. But now, a variant had appeared in the cultivation world, a monster incarnate. As a nascent soul, he killed Dao Being Glass in the Dao inheritance ground without giving Glass Palace any face. Dao Being Glass was the personal disciple that Glass Palace's sect master valued the most. Su Zimo isn't dead yet? Glass Palace's sect master's voice was cold and chilling. Sect master, according to the news from the Dao inheritance ground, Desolate Martial should be Su Zimo's Dao title. A Dharma characteristic Dao lord said in a deep voice. Glass Palace's sect master was truly enraged. Gritting his teeth, he said, "If he manages to escape from the Dao inheritance ground alive, gather all the mighty figures of the sect and follow me to the middle continent to kill our way into 100 Refinement sect. I want to see if extreme fire can stop me." Not bad. Another conjoined body mighty figure nodded. That lad is way too much of a monster incarnate. He has already taken on a huge grudge with us, and we can't let him continue growing. We have to kill him. No matter the cost. Don't worry, sect master. Even if that lad were to establish his Dao, it would be useless. A Dao lord said. Don't forget that there are still titular disciples like Dean in the Dao inheritance ground. This lad won't be able to escape even if he has wings. At the same time, in Poison Sect, an old man with withered yellow cheeks sat beneath a gigantic poisonous python and held a jade-green staff in his hands. Sect Master, I just received news that Su Zimo is not dead yet. He escaped into the Three Tribulations domain and has already established his Dao heart, causing the world to tremble. A cultivator came before the old man and knelt on the ground, speaking in a deep voice. Poison Sect Master's expression turned cold as he said with a sinister gaze, "That lad isn't dead yet? Let's see how long more he can live." Chaos Essence Sect. Many conjoined body mighty figures were awakened by the voice in the firmaments, and walked out of their cave abodes. "Firmament arrival, come here!" Suddenly, an authoritative voice sounded from Chaos Essence Sect. Firmament Arrival was the Dao title of Chaos Essence Sect's sect master. There were only a few people in the entire sect who dared to order a sect master like that. Before long, a middle-aged Dao Being arrived before an ancient cave abode and bowed respectfully. The existence in the cave abode was the Grand Elder of the sect, Defan. His cultivation had already broken through the conjoined body realm, and he was now at the half-martial Ancestor realm. Breaking through from conjoined body to Mahayana was extremely difficult. Even in the ancient era where the human race rose to glory and there were many conjoined body mighty figures, there were very few Mahayana patriarchs. Above the conjoined body realm and below the Mahayana realm, there was another minor realm, the half-martial Ancestor realm. It was also known as half-step Mahayana. Although one had not fully broken through to the Mahayana realm at this point, they were qualified to be referred as ancestors. This was the origin of the half-martial ancestor. Even though he was only a half-martial ancestor, his combat strength was enough to suppress all conjoined body mighty figures. In Tianhuang mainland, Mahayana realm patriarchs had broad horizons and pursued the Great Tao wholeheartedly. They had long broken free from the restraints of the sect and rarely appeared. The only time Mahayana patriarchs might appear is if the sect is in danger of being destroyed. This meant that the half-martial ancestor was almost the strongest existence in Tianhuang mainland. For the sake of advancing further, the half-martial ancestor would enter seclusion all year round as well. If not for the fact that Desolate Martial established the Tao and shocked the world, Di Fan would not have woken up from his seclusion. Chaos Essence Sect Master whispered, "Elder D, even you were alarmed?" "Yes." Within the cave abode, a pair of eyes opened slowly and shone with a divine light. It was like a bolt of lightning that tore through the night sky and could not be avoided. "What's going on?" Di Fan asked slowly. Chaos Essence Sect Master hurriedly recounted the situation of the Tao inheritance ground in detail. "That's him?" Di Fan frowned slightly. Dean was his grandson. Part of the reason why Dean was so famous in the cultivation world was also because he was backed by a half-martial ancestor. 100 years ago, Dean suffered a crushing defeat in Myriad Phenomenon City and his protection Dharmic weapon was shattered, almost resulting in his death. Di Fan knew about it as well and was extremely furious. However, there was no news of Su Zimo later on and things were left unsettled. Di Fan asked, "Are you sure that he's at the nascent soul realm?" "Yes, he just broke through to perfected nascent soul realm at the Thousand Crane Tea Party more than a month ago," Chaos Essence Sect Master replied. "Yes, there's nothing to worry about then," Di Fan replied indifferently. "Dean is already at the Void Reversion realm. No matter how much of a monster incarnate he is, there's no way he can be a match for Dean. He won't have a chance to break through in the Tao inheritance ground either," Chaos Essence Sect Master added. Di Fan said in a deep voice, "Alright, you may leave. I'm going to continue my seclusion. Don't disturb me unless something major happens." Chaos Essence Sect Master bowed and retreated. The Tao inheritance ground. Dean had just left the Three Tribulations domain, and had yet to take a breather when he heard a deafening voice. "Desolate Martial wishes to establish a Tao and impart martial to all living beings." He turned around suddenly and his gaze froze. The cultivators of the Tao inheritance ground looked over with widened eyes in shock. Could it be? Su Zimo actually cleared the Three Tribulations domain. The number one in history! Who can match such a Tao heart? The crowd roared and the cultivators were shocked. Suddenly, a bedazzling light burst forth from the end of the Three Tribulations domain. A sword came from the west and tore through the void. A spear stood tall and shattered the world. There was an indomitable figure holding a horsetail whisk with an immortal aura. He looked like a peerless immortal king with a domineering demeanor. A great Buddha descended and golden light shone endlessly. Sanskrit echoed endlessly. There were also demonic infants that shrieked in a soul-stirring manner. A series of shocking legacy phenomenons burst forth like volcanoes at the end of the Three Tribulations domain. There were dozens of them. The entire Tao inheritance ground was trembling. "Ah, this is..." Su Zimo's Tao heart was acknowledged by all the ancient mighty figures. This meant that Su Zimo could choose any of the dozens of ancient inheritances within. Chapter 1020 Flesh Rebirth. Chapter 1020 Flesh Rebirth. When they heard the discussions around them, Tao being Heavenly Dipper and the other titular disciples had ugly expressions. Up till now, they had suffered a crushing defeat. It was embarrassing enough that everyone joined forces and set up traps to kill Su Zimo, but he managed to escape. Later on, Su Zimo barged into the Three Tribulations domain. They were indignant and wanted to follow Su Zimo to get their share of the treasures. In the end, all of them retreated dejectedly and lost all face. But now, Not only did Su Zimo clear the three tribulations domain, he even obtained the recognition of many ancient mighty figures. They were defeated again and again. Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other titular disciples could vaguely sense that the situation was out of their control. After a moment of silence, Dao being Malevolent Earth suddenly sneered. So what if you get the acknowledgement of many ancient mighty figures? Don't forget, you can only choose one of the inheritances here. Not bad. Dao being Zephyr Thunder nodded as well. Generally speaking, cultivators who could obtain the inheritance in the Dao inheritance ground would not obtain a second inheritance. The conjoined body mighty figures that could leave their inheritance here were all proud and arrogant experts who had once dominated a region. Naturally, they would hope that their successor would wholeheartedly cultivate to the peak using only the inheritance obtained from them. If everyone could obtain 2, 3 inheritances or more, the inheritances here would have long been snatched away by the former paragons. Everyone, don't worry. Dao being Heavenly Dipper smiled gently. Even if Su Zimo obtains the inheritance, it's useless. This is the Dao inheritance ground, and he can't comprehend the heaven and earth outside. The spirit chi is thin, and even if he stays inside for 100 years, he won't be able to comprehend or break through. After cultivating to the nascent soul realm, every breakthrough required the essence spirit to comprehend the heaven and earth. This was a separate dimension that was isolated from the outside world. It was impossible for him to break through here. Furthermore, after obtaining the inheritance, it did not mean that cultivators could comprehend it instantly. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The inheritance of an ancient mighty figure was something that required a cultivator to comprehend, cultivate, and experience personally before they can understand the obscurities within. However, that was impossible to achieve in this separate dimension of the Dao inheritance ground. Monk Formless and the others nodded. Dao being Heavenly Dipper shrugged with a relaxed expression. Therefore, he has to come out eventually. Otherwise, he won't be able to do anything if he stays inside. Dao being Malevolent Earth sneered. We'll just guard the vicinity and he'll definitely be the one who can't afford to waste time. Not bad, Dao being Zephyr Thunder said. No matter what, that person will lose. He's at the nascent soul realm and has 1,000 years of lifespan. We have 5,000 years of lifespan. At most, we'll just wait till he dies. The cultivators nearby were shocked. For the sake of Su Zimo, these titular disciples were willing to spend 1,000 years here. Of course, that was just a casual remark out of anger. Nobody could afford to waste 1,000 years. Dean looked at the three tribulations domain and pondered for a long time. Suddenly, a killing intent flashed in his eyes and he disappeared from the spot. If not for Lin Xuanji, he would have killed Su Zimo a long time ago. There wouldn't have been so many variables. Dean intended to make a move and kill all variables within the Dao inheritance ground. He would not allow any accidents to happen when Su Zimo appeared again. In the three tribulations domain, Su Zimo finished his last sentence and took another step forward. Suddenly, he felt his vision clearing up. He had already left the boundaries of the lightning domain. The end of the three tribulations domain was not big. It was like a small cemetery. There were all sorts of lifelike stone statues within. Some of them were wielding all sorts of gigantic weapons that were filled with killing intent. There were also some stone statues with huge tombstones beside their feet. At that moment, the stone statues emitted a mysterious light that shone on Su Zimo's shattered body. Initially, his body was already in a tragic state after the baptism of the wind and fire tribulations. His flesh was shriveled and his skin was dim like a dried corpse. Many parts of his body were already revealed with white bones. Although Su Zimo's Dao heart had already condensed and was unshakable, his body had truly reached its limits. His life force was weak and his organs were withered. However, at that moment, after his body was covered by the light, his initially shriveled flesh suddenly shone with endless vitality and was gradually nourished. The wounds on his organs healed at a visible speed as well. Flesh and blood regenerated on the bones. His withered body was filled with vitality once more. This was a godly method of regenerating flesh and bones to revive a dead person. After reaching the conjoined body realm, one would be able to regrow their limbs. This glow was clearly a technique left behind by many ancient mighty figures. Initially, a single light from one of the stone statues was enough for Su Zimo to recover completely. But now that dozens of lights shone down, his body recovered completely within a few breaths. An immense amount of life essence circulated within his body, nourishing every single inch of his flesh. His skin shone with a crystalline luster, tender and fair. This was almost equivalent to a rebirth. After experiencing the baptism of the wind and fire tribulations, the bone-piercing wind, tempering of the karmic flames and the regeneration of flesh and blood, his body had become even stronger and more terrifying. Even the injuries on Su Zimo's black-haired essence spirit healed gradually under the shroud of the light. Essence spirit injuries were too difficult to heal, let alone recover completely. But now, with the help of the light of dozens of ancient mighty figures, his essence spirit had already recovered and its power had increased as well. Unfortunately, the scar on the scarlet-haired spirit did not change. As soon as the light touched the scarlet-haired spirit, they avoided it as though they could sense the aura of the dragon race. Su Zimo could understand. After all, this was a sacred ground of the human race. Naturally, it would not help the scarlet-haired spirit who was surging with demonic chi. Dozens of legacy phenomenons flashed in the void. Suddenly, a mysterious feeling rose in Su Zimo's heart. If he wanted to, he could inherit more than a single inheritance of the ancient mighty figures. He could inherit all the dozens of inheritances here. The feeling intensified. Could this be the reward for passing the three tribulations domain? Su Zimo muttered softly. He arrived beside a stone statue and touched it gently with his palm. Instantly, countless inheritance information surged into his body. Releasing his palm, he walked to the side of another stone statue and reached out to touch it. The stone statue did not resist either, and endless inheritance information surged into his mind. Su Zimo released his grip with a shocked expression. It was not a hallucination. He could inherit all the inheritances here. Looking at the dozens of ancient mighty figures before him, Su Zimo's eyes lit up after a long period of silence. He understood. The reason why he was able to inherit the inheritances of dozens of ancient mighty figures was not because he had passed the test of the three tribulations domain. It was because of his Dao heart. He wanted to establish the martial Dao and impart martial to all living beings. That was the reason why the remnant consciousnesses of these ancient mighty figures wanted to help him fulfill his grand wish. All of them could sense his Dao heart. Even though they had fallen through the ages and were merely remnant consciousnesses that could vanish at any moment, they were still concerned about the masses. At that moment, the dozens of ancient mighty figures were selfless and unreserved. Su Zimo was touched and bowed deeply. Thank you, seniors, for your love. I, Su Zimo, will not let down your trust and your Dao hearts. Chapter 1021 Dao Heart Fiend Seed. Chapter 1021 Dao Heart Fiend Seed. Su Zimo did a rough count. There were 32 inheritance stone statues here. He did not have much time. Solitary Cloud had consumed a life preservation elixir and could only last for a month at most. He had to leave this place before a month was up. In other words, although there were many inheritances here, he had to find one that was suitable for him and could raise his combat strength in a short period of time. Solitary Cloud was severely injured with only a single breath left. He had to kill his way out and make all the titular disciples outside pay with their lives. He paced around the stone statues and read the words they had left behind. Arriving before a stone statue, Su Zimo paused in his tracks and frowned. The flow of time here was abnormal. Anyone else might not have been able to sense it. However, Su Zimo had cultivated the demonic art Baron before. To a certain extent, Baron was a form of control over time. Therefore, he was extremely sensitive to the flow of time. Sweeping his gaze, Su Zimo landed on a green stone beneath his feet. Wiping away the dust on it, he revealed a few lines of words. My Dao title is instant, and I was a half step into the Mahayana realm. I was at the initial stages of learning divine powers, but my essence spirit was injured after a huge battle and I fell as a half-martial ancestor. With my divine powers, I altered the time within 5 feet of this place. A year here is equivalent to a day outside. Su Zimo was startled at that statement. In other words, a single day outside was equivalent to a year of cultivation within 5 feet of this place. If he could stay here for 20 days, it would mean that he could cultivate for a full 20 years within the space of these 5 feet. That was way too important for Su Zimo. He had just advanced to the perfected nascent soul realm. No matter how he cultivated or what inheritance he obtained, it was impossible for him to step into the void reversion realm within 20 days. However, if he could cultivate here for 20 years, he could turn the impossible possible. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly as he gradually retreated from the region, continuing to observe the inheritance stone statues here. Arriving before a stone statue of a mighty figure of the Fiend sex, he paused and looked at the words below. I am half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky. I once roamed through Tianhuang mainland and was invincible beneath the Mahayana realm. Another half-martial ancestor expert. A half-martial ancestor expert was only half a step away from reaching the Mahayana realm and becoming a patriarch. Every single one of them had countless dazzling achievements and fame back then. I've left behind a supreme secret manual of the Fiend sex, the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. The stronger a cultivator's Dao Heart is, the more powerful this cultivation technique will be. Those with weak Dao hearts are forbidden from cultivating it. At that point, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. This cultivation technique was extremely suitable for his current situation. Firstly, after he entered the nascent soul realm, he had the top-tier cultivation techniques of the immortal and Buddhist sections. However, he did not have any cultivation techniques of the Fiend sections. If he could add in the Fiend sex cultivation techniques, his essence spirit would be even more condensed and stronger. The creation green lotus would also grow faster. Second, and most importantly, according to what half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky said, the stronger the Dao heart, the greater the benefits. Su Zimo believed that nobody's Dao heart could be stronger than his. If he cultivated this cultivation technique, his Dao heart would definitely not be shaken even if some sinister fiend were to invade. Right then, the eyes of the stone statue shone with a strange glint. Su Zimo turned around instinctively. Their gazes met and Su Zimo shuddered. Those eyes were pitch black and cold, emitting a mysterious power that resembled a deep vortex that could suck his soul in. A sinister power surged into his mind through his eyes. Is this what it means to accept an inheritance? This resembles how enlightenment is described in legends. Many thoughts flashed through Su Zimo's mind. Before long, streams of black chi appeared on his black hair and essence spirit. More and more of it gathered in his consciousness. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt that something was amiss. Although he had never received the inheritance of a mighty figure in this place, the situation before him clearly had nothing to do with inheriting a Dharmic Dao. Right from the beginning, he had not obtained any information about the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. Instead, his spirit consciousness was filled with a sinister and vile fiendish aura. Most importantly, his spirit perception was constantly warning him. Su Zimo wanted to retreat and sever his connection with the stone statue. However, he realized that his body was no longer under his control. What a perfect Dao heart! Right then, a sigh sounded in his consciousness with endless vicissitudes. Oh! This body is so perfect as well! The aged voice sounded once more with joy and laughter. The heavens are really helping me, ha ha ha! An inexplicable sense of fear rose in Su Zimo's heart, and his body turned cold. He finally realized what he was experiencing. Assimilation. Dao Lord Extreme Fire had once warned him to be careful of being assimilated. After all, his body was way too terrifying and powerful that anyone would be tempted. At that time, Su Zimo did not take it to heart. To think that he would truly encounter such a situation. Furthermore, he was completely unprepared in the Dao inheritance ground. But how was that possible? The inheritances here had been passed down for countless years, and even Mahayana patriarchs would have passed away a long time ago. How could anyone still be alive? Seemingly sensing the confusion in Su Zimo's heart, the voice sounded once more with a faint chuckle. I'm Imperial Sky, and I died a long time ago. However, my Dao technique has yet to dissipate and remains here. Right now, I'm merely borrowing your Dao heart to be reborn and live another life. Su Zimo was shocked. Living another life with the help of his Dao heart. In the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra, the seed of the fiend planted was not referring to something else, but the expert of the fiend sex who had fallen, half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky. There's no need for you to doubt it. The Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra does indeed exist. Within Su Zimo's consciousness, black chi surged endlessly and a human figure was gradually formed. However, its appearance was still unclear. Half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky continued. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance to cultivate anymore. However, don't worry, I'll help you complete your cultivation path after devouring your essence spirit. In that short period of time, the essence spirit of the half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky had already fully condensed. His features were clear and his eyes were pitch black, emitting a strange glow as he smiled at Su Zimo. That smile was like a demon that had just walked out of hell, and it was chilling. The essence spirit of the half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky strode towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo suppressed the fear in his heart and calmed down quickly. Your rebirth through the use of the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra is shocking indeed. However, it's not without flaws, Su Zimo said coldly. Dao Heart Fiend Seed, my cultivation is only at the nascent soul realm. Since you implanted a fiend seed using my Dao Heart to regrow your essence spirit, the cultivation realm of your essence spirit is definitely also at the nascent soul realm. Chapter 1022 Devour. Chapter 1022 Devour. You're smart. Half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky did not hide his admiration for Su Zimo at all. It's already not bad that you can calm down so quickly in front of me and discover the secret of the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. If not for the fact that I have to rely on you to be reborn, I would have accepted a disciple already. Half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky did not stop in his tracks and sighed gently. Unfortunately, this is the cultivation world. If you want to cultivate a great Dao, you have to be cold and heartless. After devouring your essence spirit, I'll be able to enter the void reversion realm quickly. Oh, although the cultivation realm is still lower than in my previous life, it doesn't matter. After all, this body and Dao heart are both perfect. I'll definitely make up for all the regrets of my previous life. Even with his temperament, half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky could not contain his excitement after being reborn, and could not stop talking. Are you that confident? Su Zimo sneered. We're both at the nascent soul realm. Although you wish to devour me, I can devour you as well. While it seemed like the situation was extremely treacherous for Su Zimo, it could be an opportunity for him as well. As long as he could devour the essence spirit that was reborn from half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky, he had a chance of entering the void reversion realm. Foo! Half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky chuckled. That's not a bad idea, but it's a pity that it's unrealistic. Although my reborn essence spirit is at the nascent soul realm, it's not something that your essence spirit can match. We'll know once we try. The black-haired essence spirit did not show the slightest bit of fear when facing half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky. With a loud roar, it lunged forward. The two essence spirits collided. Boom! His sea of consciousness shook. The two figures separated. After a slight pause, they charged forward once more. Their essence spirits clashed continuously. Both of their essence spirits were at the same realm, and whoever could devour the other would have to see whose essence spirit was more condensed, and who could win in this essence spirit competition. After a series of clashes, half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky's heart skipped a beat. The black-haired essence spirit was much harder to deal with than he had imagined. He had once cultivated to the half-martial ancestor realm, and stood at the peak of the entire Tianhuang mainland. Now that he was reborn through this Dao heart, and experienced reincarnation, his essence spirit was even more condensed. However, he had not expected that his essence spirit would not be able to gain any advantage against Su Zimo's black-haired essence spirit. The sea of consciousness had already been turned upside down by the two essence spirits. None of them could retreat or surrender. After enduring through the ages and being reborn, half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky would definitely cherish this opportunity, and would not give it up. But who was Su Zimo? How could he allow himself to be assimilated? Kid, give up resisting. The voice of half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky suddenly turned extremely charming, as though it could disturb the minds of cultivators. He said faintly, "Even if you're assimilated by me, you won't die. I'll inherit your memories, thoughts, and everything about you. Actually, for you, it's also a rebirth of sorts. Give up, give up!" Half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky's voice echoed in Su Zimo's ears. "What grand wish do you want to fulfill? I can fulfill it for you. The path of cultivation is filled with hardship and danger. Since I'm here to take your place, why not?" Half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky was still using his bewitching voice to destroy Su Zimo's will. However, he had been dead for too long, and had just been reborn. He could not think straight. Su Zimo was able to gain the recognition of dozens of ancient mighty figures after passing through the three tribulations domain, who could destroy his will. Nobody could shake his Dao heart. "I'm sorry." Su Zimo's voice was calm and cold. "I'll walk my own path." "Kill!" Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. The creation green lotus that was initially hovering not far away spewed out rays of green light that slashed towards the essence spirit of half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky. "Is this your trump card?" Half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky smiled and pointed to the skies. "Freeze!" The moment he said that, the 45 green lotus seeds that tore through the air froze in the sea of consciousness. Half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky smiled. "My essence spirit was reborn from your essence spirit using your Dao heart. How can that Dharmic weapon injure me? What about me?" The smile of half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky suddenly vanished. The black-haired essence spirit that was not far away had a calm expression and merely looked at half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky coldly without saying anything. Furthermore, that voice came from behind him. Half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky suddenly felt a chilling sensation. He felt a sharp pain in his chest as an arm filled with dragon scales tore through his chest and exited. "Ah!" Half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky shrieked. Behind him stood a scarlet-haired essence spirit with a cold expression and dragon scales all over its body. It was identical to Su Zimo. It was the scarlet-haired spirit. The scarlet-haired spirit was injured and was initially hiding in the bronze square tripod in the corner. Half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky had not noticed it at all. However, at that moment, the scarlet-haired spirit suddenly attacked and launched a fatal attack on half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky. Even though he was an expert of the ancient era and was experienced and knowledgeable, he had never expected that Su Zimo would have two essence spirits in his consciousness. He had absolutely no chance of winning this battle. In reality, if it was any other cultivator, half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky would have been able to reincarnate through assimilation with ease. Anyone would be scared out of their wits when they saw such a shocking and terrifying assimilation technique. They would probably faint from fear if they had to face a half-martial Ancestor expert of the ancient era, let alone resist. Unfortunately, half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky was way too unlucky. Throughout the long years, no one had been able to pass through the three tribulations domain. Finally, someone managed to get through, but it was a monster incarnate like Su Zimo who had cultivated two essence spirits. The black-haired essence spirit had already pounced over. The essence spirit of half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky was severely injured and could not defend against it at all. He could only glare with widened eyes and roar. "I'm indignant!" Swoosh! Swoosh! The black-haired essence spirit reached out with both hands and grabbed the head of half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky, devouring the power of his essence spirit endlessly. This sort of assimilation not only devoured the power of the essence spirit, but also the memories of half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky. The memories of a half-martial ancestor were way too precious. Not only did it contain the true Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra, it also contained many insights and understanding into fiend cultivation techniques. This meant that Su Zimo might be able to break through to the void reversion realm without the need to comprehend the heaven and earth. That was because the entire process of comprehending the heaven and earth that half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky had experienced after breaking through to the void reversion realm was in his memories. With the help of the essence spirit of half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky, Su Zimo might be able to break through to the void reversion realm, even the Dao inheritance ground with thin spirit chi. He was able to turn the situation around. Before long, half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky's essence spirit dimmed and was devoured by Su Zimo. The black-haired essence spirit had another aura of the fiend sex that was on par with the immortal and Buddhist sections. At that moment, Su Zimo felt his body lighten. Now that half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky was dead, Su Zimo had regained control of his body. With a flash, he arrived at the region in front of half-martial ancestor Instant, and sat down cross-D to cultivate. A single day outside was worth a year of cultivation here. Su Zimo wanted to break through as soon as possible and rush out of the Three Tribulations domain. He wanted to kill all the titular disciples who surrounded him and cause rivers of blood to flow. Chapter 1023 Void Reversion Realm. Chapter 1023 Void Reversion Realm. Time slowly passed. 1 day. 2 days. 10 days. 10 days had passed and there were not many changes to the cultivators in the Dao inheritance ground. Dao being Heavenly Dipper, Dao being Zephyr Thunder, Monk Formless and Dao being Malevolent Earth were still guarding outside the Three Tribulations domain. They were either meditating or deep in thought, and there was no hint of impatience on their faces. Although Dao being Hidden Death did not appear, everyone knew that he was definitely nearby. Apart from the 4 titular disciples, a large number of cultivators from various major sects and factions had gathered in the vicinity. Everyone wanted to wait for an outcome. In the blink of an eye, 15 days passed. The number of cultivators outside the Three Tribulations domain did not decrease. At the end of the Three Tribulations domain, Su Zimo, who was sitting in front of the stone statue of half-martial ancestor Instant, had already cultivated for 15 years. This day, he finally digested the essence spirit of half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky that he devoured completely. The power of his essence spirit had already reached its peak. For the past 15 years, the enlightenment half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky gained when he broke through to void reversion realm flowed through Su Zimo's mind repeatedly. He gradually sensed the opportunity to break through. The black-haired essence spirit was finally about to step into the void reversion realm after experiencing the baptism of the top cultivation techniques of the immortal, Buddhist, and fiend sects. Within his consciousness, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Sanskrit echoed endlessly through the world. A gigantic Buddha body appeared behind the black-haired essence spirit. Black fiend chi spewed out endlessly from the black-haired essence spirit's body. It was cold and terrifying as it coiled in midair, forming a sickle-like divine weapon. The 3 top-tier cultivation techniques of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects, the Purple Thunder Manual, Great Day Rolai Sutra and Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra, were constantly tempered. The black-haired essence spirit became purer, and its impurities disappeared without a trace. His sea of consciousness was boiling. Su Zimo's eyes opened and shone with divine light as he reared his head and howled. Boom! His spirit consciousness vibrated. The black-haired essence spirit's black hair danced, and its aura rose continuously, emitting endless light as his spirit consciousness expanded. It had broken through. The spirit was refined and reverted to the void reversion realm. Su Zimo could clearly sense the power of a void reversion essence spirit. With a single thought of his spirit consciousness, he could mobilize even more Dharmic powers. Normally speaking, The range of an early-stage void reversion spirit consciousness could reach 50 kilometers. Even at its peak, it could not exceed 500 kilometers. However, the range of Su Zimo's spirit consciousness had already reached 500 kilometers. The top-notch cultivation techniques of the immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend sects allowed his essence spirit to undergo another transformation. The void reversion realm was way too important to Su Zimo. Initially, when titular disciples released their essence spirit secret skills, he could only use the Mingwang prayer beads, seeds of the creation green lotus, and other treasures to defend passively. However, after he entered the void reversion realm, he would be able to release the essence spirit secret skill that he had cultivated in the past. Although he was only at the early stage void reversion realm, his black-haired essence spirit possessed 3 top-notch cultivation techniques of the immortals, Buddhas and Fiends. The power of his essence spirit was no weaker than any of the titular disciples. Once he entered the void reversion realm, the power of all his Dharmic arts would increase exponentially. Although it had only been 15 days, Su Zimo had changed way too much. As his cultivation realm stabilized, his consciousness gradually returned to normal. Su Zimo's gaze flickered and he pondered for a moment. He was in no hurry to leave this place. He still had some time. Now that he had broken through to the void reversion realm, he should have no issues dealing with Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other titular disciples with the increase in his combat strength. However, he still had no confidence against Yin. Su Zimo intended to continue cultivating the many Fiend techniques of the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. The more Dharmic arts he comprehended, the more confidence he would have against Yin. The Fiend techniques of the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra were all-encompassing. There were cultivation techniques from all 7 of the current Fiend sects within. There was an extremely strange essence spirit secret skill in the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. The secret skill was known as the soul-searching art. It was not a purely offensive Dharmic art, but a technique that could capture a cultivator's essence spirit alive and collect its memories. Of course, it was not certain how much of its memories could be collected. Furthermore, even if essence spirits that were targeted by the soul-searching art were not dead, they would be rendered as idiots without any consciousness. There was also a visual technique known as the Heavenly Fiend Eye and was similar to the bewitching eye of the pure Maiden sect. If a cultivator was controlled by that visual technique, he would not disobey even if he was asked to commit suicide. Of course, the offensive power of this eye technique was not strong and was much weaker than his illumination dragon eye. Su Zimo did not get up and continued sitting. His essence spirit was still nurturing the creation green lotus and cultivating the various Fiend techniques of the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. With the memories of half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky, Su Zimo was able to cultivate those Fiend techniques with half the effort. In the blink of an eye. Another 5 days passed outside while Su Zimo cultivated for another 5 years. In the past 5 years, he had already cultivated more than half of the Fiend techniques in the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra and even managed to cultivate the strongest Dharmic art within it. Su Zimo stood up and was prepared to leave. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks and exclaimed softly. Something changed in his consciousness once more. To be precise, the creation green lotus had changed. Initially, the creation green lotus was at grade 5. It was a green lotus platform shrouded by caves and a resplendent glow with 5 layers of gigantic flower petals. But now, the creation green lotus underwent another change. In the middle of the green lotus platform, a circle of tender petals grew once more. They were emerald green and slowly bloomed. Grade 6. This was the sign of the creation green lotus advancing to grade 6. However, this change did not stop. Beneath the creation green lotus, a green and slender lotus stem grew. It was straight like jade and crystalline. The thin threads within were clear like the veins of a human. A gigantic lotus leaf grew from the stem. Su Zimo was elated. He could vaguely sense that this was the final form of the creation green lotus. Although the creation green lotus was in his consciousness, it was as though the green lotus was connected to the world. Its stem was rooted in his sea of consciousness, and the lotus flower towered into the firmaments with its leaves covering the skies. The green lotus swayed and chaos dissipated as the entire spirit consciousness trembled. A grade 6 creation green lotus was comparable to a Khanate Dao Lord Dharmic weapon. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly as he strode out of the cemetery and headed outside the Three Tribulations domain. He could only return to the other inheritances here if he had the chance. Solitary Cloud did not have much time left. He could not possibly exhaust Solitary Cloud to death just to obtain the inheritances here. The lightning pool above did not react to him at all when he stepped into the Three Tribulations domain again. The karmic flame did not reappear when he crossed the desert. After passing the Three Tribulations domain, he had already obtained its recognition and could travel through it at will. Outside the Three Tribulations domain. After 20 days, Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other 4 titular disciples had yet to leave. They were not the only ones, even the surrounding cultivators were waiting with bated breaths. Gradually, a figure appeared in the frost region and walked over. "Look, someone's coming out!" A cultivator pointed at the Three Tribulations domain and shouted. Countless cultivators looked over. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's eyes lit up and lightning flashed. He stood up slowly and sneered. "Fufu, as expected. Su Zimo, you can't help but come out yourself." Chapter 1024 Afraid you won't be able to take it. Chapter 1024 Afraid you won't be able to take it. The figure in the frost region was gradually becoming clearer. It was undoubtedly Su Zimo. Dao being Malevolent Earth sneered and stood up. Monk Formless woke up from his meditation as well and touched his storage bag. The wooden fish and mallet were already in his hands. Dao being Heavenly Dipper smiled and sent a voice transmission secretly. "Everyone, we can't hold back this time round. Kill him with all our might so that nothing unexpected happens." "That's right." Monk Formless nodded. The unforeseen circumstance that they were worried about was none other than Dean returning and taking away the treasures that belonged to them. Before long, Su Zimo stepped out of the Three Tribulations domain. Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other 3 had already surrounded him with killing intent. Surveying his surroundings, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he nodded. "Good, very good. All of you are here so that I don't have to look for you one by one." Right then, Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other 3 titular disciples gradually noticed something amiss. At first glance, Su Zimo was no different from before. However, the aura he exuded was much fiercer than before. His presence was strong, his might was unrestrained while his gaze was frightening and sharp like a knife that could not be avoided. Void Reversion Realm? When Dao being Malevolent Earth's spirit consciousness swept past Su Zimo, his heart skipped a beat. When Dao being Heavenly Dipper, Dao being Zephyr Thunder and Monk Formless swept their spirit consciousness past Su Zimo, their hearts skipped a beat too as disbelief filled their eyes. How was that possible? Su Zimo had just broken through to the perfected nascent soul realm at the Thousand Crane Tea Party. How could he break through to the Void Reversion realm in just 20 days? Furthermore, this was the Dao inheritance ground that was in its own separate dimension. The spirit chi was thin, and he could not even comprehend the heaven and earth. How could he break through? Even if Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other 3 titular disciples racked their brains, they would not be able to imagine what Su Zimo had experienced and obtained at the end of the Three Tribulations domain. The Void Reversion Realm. He broke through? Heavens, what sort of opportunities did Su Zimo obtain inside? A wave of shock and astonishment could be heard from the crowd. Instantly, Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other 3 titular disciples felt immense pressure. The difference between the nascent soul and Void Reversion realm was a major cultivation realm, and his combat strength would definitely increase as well. Prior to this, Su Zimo did not have much of a chance to retaliate against their combined attacks. But now that he was at Void Reversion realm, he definitely had the power to threaten them. At that moment, all of them reckoned that even if Su Zimo was at the Void Reversion realm, he was only at the early stage of the Void Reversion realm. There was no way he could win against 4 of them. However, this battle would not be as easy as it was initially. If Su Zimo were to risk his life, there was a high chance that he would drag one of them down with him. The four of them did not realize that Su Zimo was not just going to kill one or two people. He was going to bury them all in the Dao inheritance ground. Su Zimo, your heaven splitter is in my hands. Dao being Heavenly Dipper looked relaxed and smiled. The mystic magnet mountain is in Dao being Malevolent Earth hands. What other treasures do you have? You're left with nothing but the creation green lotus. Patron Su, if you return the creation green lotus to the Buddhist sects, I can withdraw from this battle. Monk Formless said indifferently. We Buddhist disciples have always been aloof from worldly affairs and don't wish to fight with others. However, I can't bear to see this treasure fall into the hands of fiend demons like you. His words sounded righteous but were extremely hypocritical. This was almost a form of extermination, and yet it was called standing aloof from worldly affairs. Even the surrounding cultivators looked disgusted. If Su Zimo were to hand over the creation green lotus, Monk Formless might withdraw from the fight. However, without the creation green lotus, Su Zimo's combat strength would be greatly reduced, and he would definitely be killed by Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other two. In that case, not only would Monk Formless obtain the creation green lotus, he would also gain a good reputation. The thoughts of Monk Formless could not be hidden from the many cultivators present. Fufufu, you want the creation green lotus? Su Zimo could not help but laugh. He looked down at Monk Formless and retracted his smile, saying coldly, All right, I'll give it to you. The moment he said that, purple lightning flashed on his body and a pair of gigantic wings of Dharmic power grew from his back. He transformed into a bolt of lightning and arrived before Monk Formless instantly. Against the four titular disciples, Su Zimo was fearless and attacked first. The moment Su Zimo moved, the four titular disciples reacted instantly. Another saber appeared in Dao being Heavenly Dipper's hands. It was Su Zimo's Heaven Splitter. Heaven Splitter was not Su Zimo's destiny Dharmic weapon and could be used by Dao being Heavenly Dipper the moment the latter got his hands on it. He now had two sabers in his hands. Stars Encirclement of the Moon! Wielding two connate Dharmic sabers in his hands, Dao being Heavenly Dipper slashed down towards Su Zimo's back. Above the firmaments, a gigantic starry sky appeared. Countless stars shone resplendently as though endless starlight was raining down before them. Stars appeared. The saber beam was piercingly cold. Under the illumination of endless starlight, it transformed into two bright moons that tore through the void and descended. It was an extremely shocking sight. It was as though two full moons were falling from the firmaments and slashing towards Su Zimo. This was the wrath of the firmaments, and was unstoppable. Ooh! Ooh! Dao being Zephyr Thunder gripped his hammer with both hands and spun his body, causing a series of hurricanes to swirl around the hammer. The hurricanes revolved around him, forming a tornado that connected the heavens and the earth. It swept towards Su Zimo with a terrifying might. Everywhere it passed, sand and rocks filled the skies and mud churned, as though it could destroy all life. Dao being Malevolent Earth swung his bone spear and endless malevolent chi surged forth, forming a black fog that surged violently and transformed into a menacing head in midair. The malevolent black head opened its mouth and bit down viciously at Su Zimo. The three titular disciples attacked at the same time. There was also a possibility that Dao being Hidden Death was nearby. Although he did not appear, he could deal a fatal blow at any moment. The scene before him was extremely similar to how the four of them surrounded and tried to kill Su Zimo 20 days ago. Furthermore, the attacks of Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other two titular disciples were even more terrifying. It was clear that they had already used their full strength. It was suffocating. Even the spectating cultivators felt their hearts skip a beat and suffocate. Was this the power of the titular disciples? Even Dharma characteristic Dao lords would not be able to last more than a single breath against such a combined attack. Monk Formless' expression was calm and he did not panic at all as he slammed the mallet in his hands. Dong! The sound of the wooden fish rang. The surrounding cultivators felt their hearts skip a beat. Many cultivators clutched their chests and staggered into the distance with pained expressions. Even onlookers would have to risk their lives in such a huge battle. If that was the case for the cultivators watching from afar, it was hard for them to imagine what sort of impact Su Zimo would receive in the middle of the fray. The most frightening thing was that the attacks of the 3 titular disciples were already crushing down. Unless Su Zimo could release combat strength and methods to match the 4 of them single-handedly, he would definitely be severely injured. Kill! Su Zimo roared and thunderclap kill exploded, negating the impact of the wooden fish sound. Bald monk, this is the creation green lotus. I'm afraid you won't be able to take it. Su Zimo hollered and his glabella shone. A green shadow appeared and an emerald jade-like crystalline lotus appeared. It wasn't just a lotus platform, there were lotus leaves and a stem as well. This was a completely formed creation green lotus. Chapter 1025 Heavenly Fiend Scythe. Chapter 1025 Heavenly Fiend Scythe. While others did not feel anything when they saw the creation green lotus in its complete form, Monk Formless was shocked. For the creation green lotus to grow to such a state meant that it had already reached maturity. It was said in the ancient books of the Buddhist monasteries that when the creation green lotus stole creation from heaven and earth to reach grade 6 and arrive at maturity, apart from a massive increase in power, there would also be many other obscurities gained. Throughout history, only the ancient Buddha Emperor managed to nurture a grade 8 creation green lotus by relying on great wisdom, opportunities, and immense perseverance. It was comparable to an emperor weapon. After that, no one even produced a grade 7 creation green lotus. During this period of time, there were indeed people who managed to produce grade 6 creation green lotuses. However, the creation green lotus required the nurturing of one's essence spirit. Because of that, the cultivation of these cultivators progressed slowly, and their lifespans were eventually exhausted, causing them to stop at the Dharma characteristic realm. Yet, the cultivator before him was only more than 100 years old, and had managed to nurture a grade 6 creation green lotus. This is way too scary! This thought flashed through Monk Formless' mind. It was not unheard of for paragons to reach the void reversion realm at more than 100 years old. However, the fact that someone managed to nurture a grade 6 creation green lotus while advancing to the void reversion realm in less than 200 years was way too terrifying. It was unimaginable. The void reversion realm had a lifespan of 5,000 years. A void reversion that was more than 100 years old was way too young. The young man before him had more than enough time to nurture the creation green lotus and let it advance by another grade or 2. At that time, a grade 7 or even grade 8 creation green lotus would reappear. The entire Tianhuang mainland would be shaken. At the thought of that, Monk Formless shuddered. He could not allow that person to rise. He had to kill that person here and take away the creation green lotus. In the blink of an eye, thousands of thoughts flashed through Monk Formless' mind. However, he did not stop what he was doing. Blood chi surged as he held the wooden fish in his left hand and the wooden mallet in his right, smashing it towards Su Zimo. At that moment, Dao being Heavenly Dipper's double sabers descended first. 2 cold full moons that were shrouded by the stars descended behind Su Zimo's head with a sharp killing intent. Without even turning his head, Su Zimo closed his fingers and conjured a sword art that slashed behind him gently. Chi! A blinding sword beam burst forth with torrential killing intent. If the killing intent released by the 2 full moons could be considered as rivers, the killing intent released by the sword chi was like an endless sea. When the heaven's killing intent is released, the stars are shifted out of alignment. The stars in the sky were thrown into chaos by the killing intent. They collided and turned into streams of light that fell one after another. Without the support of the starlight, the 2 full moons were sliced into 2 by the sword chi and dispersed instantly. The white sword chi did not dissipate, and slashed towards Dao being Heavenly Dipper. That sword chi again! Dao being Heavenly Dipper was alarmed. In the previous exchange, his Dharmic arts were shattered by this sword chi. Now that Su Zimo was at the void reversion realm, the power of the sword chi was clearly stronger. Dao being Heavenly Dipper did not dare to be careless and hurriedly slashed out multiple saber intents, wanting to destroy the sword chi. Because of that, his attacks towards Su Zimo slowed down slightly and could not pose any real threat. After executing the heaven-slaying sword art, Su Zimo conjured hand seals once more and a pitch-black fiend chi that was chilling to the bones appeared in the air. The demonic chi looked even purer and more condensed than Dao being Malevolent Earth's fiend chi. No matter what, Dao being Malevolent Earth was just a titular disciple. There was no way his fiend technique could compare to half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky. Although Su Zimo had cultivated the immortal and Buddhist Dharmic arts for more than 100 years, right now, his Dharmic powers of the Fiend Dao were the strongest. What he devoured was not only the essence spirit of half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky, he also inherited the latter's comprehension and understanding of the Fiend Dao. The rumbling fiend chi gathered in midair and turned into a gigantic scythe that was pitch black and cold. When the malevolent head that was floating over saw the pitch-black scythe, its expression changed starkly. The other cultivators present could not recognize it. However, as a titular disciple of Malevolent Earth's sect, he quickly recalled some of the legends of the sect. Heavenly Fiend Scythe! Dao being Malevolent Earth sounded from the malevolent head with a hint of fear. The Heavenly Fiend Scythe was a top-grade Dharmic art of the ancient Fiend Dao. It was extremely ferocious and specialized in reaping the lives of cultivators. Not many people of the same cultivation realm could defend against the scythe. That Dharmic art had long been lost, and he did not expect it to reappear. The strongest Dharmic art, recorded in the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra, was none other than the Heavenly Fiend Scythe. Swoosh! The gigantic Heavenly Fiend Scythe was raised and streaked through the air like a black shadow, slashing down fiercely at the incoming malevolent head. Everywhere the gigantic scythe passed, life seemed to be drained clean. The malevolent head collided with the Heavenly Fiend Scythe without causing any loud sounds. Sizzle! Under countless gazes, the Heavenly Fiend Scythe split the gigantic head in midair and slashed down slowly. The malevolent head swayed and its fiend chi could dissipate at any moment. Shoo! The head opened its mouth and a sinister boned spear pierced out, landing heavily on the edge of the scythe. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The malevolent head and the Heavenly Fiend Scythe dispersed completely. Within the pitch-black fiend chi, a figure fell from midair in a wretched manner. Blood trickled down from the corner of his mouth. It was a frightening sight. He was injured. A single exchange had already injured Dao being Malevolent Earth. The crowd fell into an uproar. To think that Su Zimo would be this terrifying now that he was at the Void Reversion realm. He managed to injure one of the titular disciples, Dao being Malevolent Earth, with a single Dharmic art. Furthermore, that was under the premise of him going against 4 people single-handedly. In reality, the Heavenly Fiend Scythe was equivalent to a move that came from a lifetime of enlightenment from the half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky but released by Su Zimo's hands. How could Dao being Malevolent Earth defend against it? If not for his swift reaction and timely use of his Destiny Dharmic weapon to defend, he would have been severely injured by now. At the same time, Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit and released the damning mantra, forming the immortal trap seal. After entering the Void Reversion realm, the power of that Dharmic art increased exponentially as well. In midair, a gigantic golden palm descended and crushed down towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder, who was surrounded by layers of hurricanes. Compared to the Heavenly Fiend Scythe, the power of the immortal trap seal was much weaker. Although it could not injure Dao being Zephyr Thunder, it managed to block off his attack. The moment Su Zimo attacked, he released all sorts of Dharmic arts and blocked all 3 of the titular disciples without holding back. The attacks of the 3 titular disciples paused momentarily. To others, this momentary pause might not amount to anything. However, it was more than enough for Su Zimo. In a fight between experts, a single instant made all the difference. In that instant, Su Zimo was in a one-on-one situation against Monk Formless. Monk Formless only realized that when he attacked. However, it was too late. Chapter 1026 Might of the Green Lotus Established. Chapter 1026 Might of the Green Lotus Established. Monk Formless wanted to retreat, but it was already too late. Su Zimo gripped the slender green lotus stem of the creation green lotus and welcomed the incoming wooden fish and mallet. Boom! The three Dharmic weapons collided with a loud bang. The creation green lotus vibrated gently and released a terrifying power that repelled the two Dharmic weapons of Monk Formless instantly. Ah! Monk Formless cried out in pain as his palm was torn and blood gushed out. He could not hold on to the two Dharmic weapons and they flew out of his hands. Before Su Zimo advanced to the Void Reversion realm, Monk Formless was already not a match for him in melee combat. Su Zimo's body underwent the wind and fire tribulations in the three tribulations domain. Coupled with the rebirth of his flesh by the afterglow of the Dharmic powers released by the ancient mighty figures, his physique was even more terrifying now. Furthermore, he had already advanced to the Void Reversion realm, and wielded the Grade 6 Creation Green Lotus. Monk Formless could not defend at all. If not for the fact that the two Dharmic weapons in Monk Formless' hands were the treasures of Formless Monastery, and were equivalent to the Mingwang prayer beads, those two Dharmic weapons would have been destroyed by the Creation Green Lotus. Now that Su Zimo had the upper hand, he was relentless. "Bald monk, hand over your life!" His gaze was like a torch as he hollered and strode forward. The creation green lotus in his hands swayed gently and the lotus platform descended, smashing towards Monk Formless' head. Monk Formless' gaze was ferocious and his benevolent expression earlier on had long disappeared. As a titular disciple, even if he was at a disadvantage for the time being, he had no fear in the face of such danger. He swiped his storage bag and summoned an ancient mirror above his head. Buzz! The ancient mirror shone brightly and expanded rapidly, shimmering with 6 Dharmic patterns, and shielded Monk Formless beneath it. That ancient mirror was also a Khanate Dao being Dharmic weapon. The surrounding cultivators were filled with envy. Although they had entered the Dao inheritance ground, most cultivators did not have Khanate Dharmic weapons. It was already not bad if they could possess a perfect grade Dharmic weapon. But now, Monk Formless had already revealed 3 Khanate Dharmic weapons. The might of titular disciples was not only in their combat strength but also their foundation, trump cards and treasures. Therefore, under normal circumstances, it was difficult for titular disciples to be killed by anyone of the same cultivation realm. But now, a monster incarnate of the cultivation world had appeared out of nowhere and destroyed this situation. This person was decisive in killing and was fearless. After entering the Dao inheritance ground, he had already killed 2 titular disciples. On the battlefield, when Su Zimo saw Monk Formless take out the Khanate Dharmic weapon, the ancient mirror, a cold glint flashed through his eyes as he hollered with a thunderous voice. "Shatter!" The green lotus descended and smashed against the ancient mirror. Boom! There was a deafening bang. Against the tremendous impact, Monk Formless' body bent down, and his legs sank deep into the mud, covering his knees. He spat out a mouthful of blood with a pale expression. This single head-on exchange caused his bones to feel like they were about to fall apart. Creaking sounds echoed from his body as his organs vibrated violently. Right then, he heard a strange sound. Crack! 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 A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd and countless people gasped. Monk Formless raised his head suddenly and looked up. Cracks appeared on the ancient mirror in his hands and spread continuously, lining the entire mirror in the blink of an eye. Shattered! The Khanate Dao being Dharmic weapon could not withstand a single attack from the Creation Green Lotus and was shattered. A Grade 6 Creation Green Lotus could fight against a Khanate Dao Lord Dharmic weapon. There were no scratches on the Creation Green Lotus after destroying a Khanate Dao being Dharmic weapon. It was still as green and shiny as ever. Looking at the shattered ancient mirror, Monk Formless could no longer maintain his composure, and his expression changed. Swoosh! The Creation Green Lotus swayed and smashed down once more. The spirit chi of the Green Lotus was overwhelming and every single lotus leaf was crystal clear like the most beautiful treasure in the world. However, When the Lotus platform smashed down, it carried a destructive aura. The depths of Monk Formless' eyes were filled with fear. If his Khanate Dharmic weapon was destroyed by the Lotus platform, his body would be smashed into a bloody pulp under the suppression of the Lotus platform. At that moment, his legs were deeply sunken into the mud. It was already too late for him to uproot himself and escape. Since even Khanate Dao being Dharmic weapons could not defend against the might of the creation Green Lotus, his other methods were useless as well. The only thing he could do was activate his Essence Spirit secret skill. Formless Finger! Monk Formless roared and his glabella shone. An extremely terrifying spirit consciousness burst forth and condensed the finger in midair, pointing towards Su Zimo's head. At the same time, Dao being Heavenly Dipper had just resolved the heavens-slaying sword art. Dao being Malevolent Earth suffered quite a shock after the collision with the Heavenly Fiend Scythe and had just landed. Dao being Zephyr Thunder had also just destroyed the golden palm of the immortal trap seal. When the three titular disciples saw that, they did not hesitate and made the most appropriate reaction right away. It would be too late for the three of them to make a move or conjure Dharmic arts to save Monk Formless. The only thing they could use that would arrive instantly was their Essence Spirit secret skill. Furthermore, in the battle against Su Zimo 20 days ago, he was severely injured and almost died after three titular disciples released their Essence Spirit secret skills against him. Right now, there were 4 of them. Including Dao being Hidden Death, there were 5 of them. There was no need for Dao being Heavenly Dipper to remind him. Dao being Hidden Death would definitely choose the best timing to strike and deal a fatal blow. Previously, Su Zimo had the help of Demoness G and Dao being Depamkara to hold off 2 titular disciples. However, this time round, Su Zimo was alone. Desolate Marshal, die! Dao being Malevolent Earth roared and his spirit consciousness burst forth from his glabella, forming a sinister bone spear in midair that stabbed towards Su Zimo. Soul Shaker Art! Dao being Zephyr Thunder hollered. A thick and majestic spirit consciousness converged in midair and formed a spirit consciousness hammer. Lightning flashed as it smashed towards Su Zimo's head. After releasing that Essence Spirit secret skill, Dao being Zephyr Thunder thought to himself, if I can obtain the Purple Thunder Manual and fuse it with his Green Thunder Manual, I'll be able to cultivate an even more terrifying Essence Spirit secret skill. That would be the secret skill of the Thunder Emperor back then. At that thought, Dao being Zephyr Thunder's eyes burned. Bang! Boom! Boom! A star condensed from spirit consciousness burst forth from Dao being Heavenly Dipper's glabella in a bedazzling manner, exuding a tremendous might that arrived instantly. The 4 titular disciples attacked at the same time and released their Essence Spirit secret skills. The impact of such a terrifying spirit consciousness attack was earth-shaking and could even kill Dharma characteristic Dao Lords instantly. The entire void was distorted by the interweaving of the 4 spirit consciousnesses. The 4 of them believed that even if Su Zimo possessed the Essence Spirit Dharmic weapon from before, he would not be able to defend against their Essence Spirit secret skills. Right then, a strange fluctuation appeared in the void. A blurry figure appeared. Dao being Hidden Death. He was not in a hurry to attack. He was waiting for Su Zimo's Essence Spirit Dharmic weapon to fail before he activated his Essence Spirit secret skill to deal a fatal blow. Chapter 1027 Killing Formless. Chapter 1027 Killing Formless. Suddenly, the tides changed on the battlefield. Initially, many of the surrounding cultivators were still guessing if Su Zimo could escape alive. But now, when the 4 titular disciples used their Essence Spirit secret skills, there was a looming sensation of death that was suffocating. There was no trick to a fight between Essence Spirits. Many cultivators believed that Su Zimo, who had just entered the Void Reversion realm, might be able to defend against the Essence Spirit secret skill of a titular disciple. However, there was no way he could defend against 4 titular disciples. On the battlefield, Su Zimo could sense the spirit consciousness fluctuation coming from behind him. His expression was calm and there was not a single ripple in his eyes. All of a sudden, The Green Lotus platform that was initially smashing down swayed and a green glow burst forth from it with a boundless sharpness. The Green Lotus Seeds. After the creation Green Lotus reached grade 6, the number of Green Lotus seeds had reached 54. Shoo! 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 Suzima willed. The 54 Green Lotus seeds were divided into 4 groups and shot out. There were 13 in each group and the remaining 2 floated around Suzima. Every Green Lotus seed galloped in midair, and the glow that enveloped its body vaguely resembled a sword. It was extremely sharp. This was also a change brought about by the advancement of the creation Green Lotus to grade 6. The sharpness of every Green Lotus seed was condensed, and it would vaguely take on the shape of a sword. 13 Green Lotus seeds meant that there were 13 swords that slashed towards the 4 incoming spirit consciousnesses. Poof! 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 The 13 Green Lotus seeds struck the Formless finger repeatedly, causing the entire finger to be riddled with holes. The light on the Green Lotus seeds dimmed while Monk Formless Essence Spirit Secret skill was neutralized by the former as well. Clang! 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 The spirit consciousness bone spear that came from behind was silent. However, the Green Lotus seeds seemed to have eyes as they turned into long swords and slashed at the bone spear. In the blink of an eye, the bone spear dissipated. The stars tore through the air with a heavy pressure. The 13 Green Lotus seeds turned into rays of sword chi and struck the center of the star in succession, penetrating the star spirit consciousness directly. The divine hammer condensed by Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder's spirit consciousness suffered the same fate as it was smashed by the Green Lotus seeds into nothingness. This was the creation Green Lotus. By stealing the creation of heaven and earth to exist eternally, it was even more terrifying now that it had matured. Initially, when the creation Green Lotus was at grade 5, Suzima was still at the nascent soul realm, and could only defend passively against the essence spirit secret skill of the titular disciples. But now, he could use the creation Green Lotus seeds to fight against the essence spirit secret skills of the titular disciples. The 4 essence spirit secret skills were blocked by the creation Green Lotus. The moment Dao Bing Hidden Death appeared, he hesitated for a moment before vanishing into the void once more. It was not that he did not want to attack, but he did not have the chance. In his original plan, it would be best if Suzima was killed by the essence spirit secret skills of the 4 titular disciples. If not, he would definitely be able to shatter the barrier of Suzima's essence spirit Dharmic weapon. He could then seize the opportunity to land a fatal blow. However, Dao Bing Hidden Death had not expected that Suzima did not even have to use the Mingwang prayer beads to defend against the 4 essence spirit secret skills. Furthermore, there were 2 extremely sharp Green Lotus seeds floating beside Suzima. If Dao Bing Hidden Death attacked, he would not pose any threat to Suzima and would only expose himself for nothing. Although he was indignant, he still hid himself. As an assassin of Hidden Death sect, he had to be patient. As long as he was willing to wait patiently, there would definitely be a perfect opportunity to strike. For Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder, Dao Bing Heavenly Dipper, and Dao Bing Malevolent Earth, they were merely shocked that the 4 essence spirit secret skills were useless. However, for Monk Formless, it made his face turn ashen and his heart sank instantly. The fight between essence spirits seemed to be slow, but it happened in an instant. Throughout the entire process, Suzima was not affected at all. The Green Lotus platform was the same as before, smashing down on Monk Formless' head. This time round, no one could save him. Formless Dharmic Seal! Monk Formless gave a final push and roared furiously. He closed his hands and conjured a gigantic Dharmic Seal at the fastest speed, colliding with the creation Green Lotus. Poof! It did not stop at all. The Dharmic Seal was destroyed instantly. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere as Monk Formless' hands were crushed by the Green Lotus platform. The Green Lotus continued to descend and smashed onto Monk Formless' head. Piak! Like a watermelon shattering, Monk Formless' head was smashed by the Green Lotus, and his brain juices splattered all over the ground. However, the Green Lotus platform was not tainted at all. Swash! Before the green Lotus platform landed on his head, a small, glowing figure flew out from the back of Monk Formless' head. His essence spirit had exited his body. Monk Formless was a titular disciple and had cultivated for more than 2,000 years. Naturally, this body was incomparably precious and would not be abandoned unless it was absolutely necessary. However, losing his body was better than having his spirit destroyed. As long as his essence spirit was still around and he returned to the sect, regardless of assimilation or through the purchase of a Dao being physical body, he could continue cultivating. Of course, it was probably impossible for him to recover his former combat strength. His title as a titular disciple would definitely be replaced by the sect as well. At the thought of that, he felt a surge of resentment towards Su Zimo once more. You caused my body to be destroyed and my title to be lost. One day, I'll definitely make you pay for this. Monk Formless thought to himself. He had yet to realize at that moment that Su Zimo was not going to let him leave the place alive. The moment his essence spirit left his body, the two green lotus seeds that were initially revolving around Su Zimo flew out and transformed into two rays of sword chi that slashed towards Monk Formless' essence spirit. A beam of light blocked the path ahead. A beam of light chased from behind. Monk Formless did not manage to escape far before he felt a sharp stab. A throbbing pain came from his essence spirit, and he could not help but tremble. Su Zimo, what are you doing? Noticing that he could not escape, Monk Formless panicked and could not help but shout in a fierce manner. I'm a titular disciple of Formless Monastery. Are you really going to kill me? Even if he was a monk of Formless Monastery and a titular disciple, he could not maintain his composure in the face of death. Titular disciples are the ones I'm going to kill! Su Zimo's voice was cold and merciless without any hesitation. Poof! Poof! The two green lotus seeds penetrated Monk Formless' essence spirit, and endless sharpness surged into his essence spirit, mincing it into pieces. His essence spirit was destroyed. The titular disciple of Formless Monastery had fallen in the Dao inheritance ground. The surrounding cultivators shuddered when they saw that. Looking at the green figure on the battlefield, everyone felt as though they were looking at a god of death that had walked out of hell. Right now, 3 titular disciples had already died in Su Zimo's hands in the Dao inheritance ground. Some cultivators gradually realized. When Su Zimo walked out of the 3 tribulations domain once more, it was not to escape but to kill. He was going to kill all the titular disciples. Chapter 1028 Killing Malevolent Earth. Chapter 1028 Killing Malevolent Earth. Monk Formless died. There was a momentary pause on the battlefield. The 3 titular disciples faced Su Zimo, and none of them made any rash moves. Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other 2 had conflicted expressions. 4 titular disciples tried to kill a Dao being who had just entered the void reversion realm, but one of them was killed instead. Gazing at Su Zimo's back view and the battered corpse of Monk Formless at his feet, the 3 of them felt the urge to retreat for the first time. However, they could not retreat. After all, the 3 of them were titular disciples and the reputation of the major sections. The outcome of this battle had not been decided yet. If they chose to flee for their lives, the sects they belonged to would become the laughing stock of the entire cultivation world. Furthermore, in their opinion, even though Su Zimo managed to defend against the earlier fight, and even killed Monk Formless, he was almost done with his trump cards. After all, he had just entered the void reversion realm. How long could he last? How much Dharmic powers did he have left after releasing so many powerful Dharmic arts? Most importantly, they believed that Dean was definitely rushing over after such a huge commotion here. Once Dean arrived, Su Zimo would definitely die. Unfortunately, Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other 2 did not know that at the moment, Dean's attention was entirely focused on Lin Xuanji. In the Dao inheritance ground, one of them gave chase while the other fled for a full 20 days. Although Lin Xuanji could not defeat Dean head-on, he had many random tricks up his sleeves and it was extremely difficult for Dean to kill him as well. In the past 20 days, Dean had caught up to Lin Xuanji several times. However, the latter used many strange and mysterious methods to escape. Outside the Three Tribulations domain, the wind howled and blood qi filled the air. After killing Monk Formless, Su Zimo turned around slowly and looked at Dao being Heavenly Dipper, Dao being Zephyr Thunder, and Dao being Malevolent Earth with a cold gaze. For some reason, the three of them felt an inexplicable pressure when they met Su Zimo's gaze. They were titular disciples. How could they feel pressure from the gaze of anyone of the same cultivation realm? Su Zimo moved. He walked slowly towards the three of them at a steady pace. As he strode over, the three of them felt a suffocating pressure envelop them. A massive shadow seemed to appear above the three of them. I have some grudges with Heavenly Dipper Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace, so it's normal for their titular disciples to hunt me down. Su Zimo turned to look at Dao being Malevolent Earth and asked indifferently, "What is Malevolent Earth Sect here for?" "You're a fiend demon, so you deserve to be hunted by everyone," Dao being Malevolent Earth replied coldly. "Oh." Su Zimo nodded. "Fine then. You can die now." The moment he said that, Su Zimo's figure flashed, and he charged towards Dao being Malevolent Earth with the creation green lotus in hand. Dao being Malevolent Earth's expression turned cold as he reacted swiftly, and retrieved the Mystic Magnet Mountain from his storage bag. The Mystic Magnet Mountain was one of the unique treasures. Although it did not affect the creation green lotus, it was impossible for the creation green lotus to shatter it as well. Kill! Dao being Zephyr Thunder and Dao being Heavenly Dipper attacked at the same time. There was no way they could let Dao being Malevolent Earth die as well. If Dao being Malevolent Earth were to fall, only the two of them would be left. Even if Dao being Hidden Death was included, they would most likely be doomed. Boom! Dao being Malevolent Earth tossed out the Mystic Magnet Mountain. The Malevolent Earth blood on the Mystic Magnet Mountain had long been washed away, and it expanded against the wind, forming a tall mountain peak that shielded Dao being Malevolent Earth. Dao being Malevolent Earth sneered internally. No matter how strong the creation green lotus was, it could not shatter a unique treasure. Rolai Dharmic Seal! Right then, Dao being Malevolent Earth, who was hiding behind the Mystic Magnet Mountain, heard a voice. Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit, and the void trembled. A golden light shone on his glabella, and his divine spirit consciousness condensed rapidly, forming a golden swastika symbol. The appearance of that ancient word seemed to be able to freeze the void and suppress it. A divine aura emanated. Against that aura, the essence spirit in Dao being Malevolent Earth's consciousness shuddered and wanted to kneel and submit. Essence spirit secret skill? Dao being Zephyr Thunder and Dao being Heavenly Dipper exclaimed with widened eyes when they saw the golden symbol. They had not expected that Su Zimo would be able to use an essence spirit secret skill the moment he entered the void reversion realm. Furthermore, the might of that essence spirit secret skill made both of them shudder in fear. Rolai Dharmic Seal. The essence spirit secret skill in the Great Day Rolai Sutra was extremely powerful, and normally, it could only be released by a Dharma characteristics essence spirit. Back in Thousand Demon Valley, Su Zimo had tried releasing it once against the pursuit of the Overlord of Levitating Goat Peak. If Dao Lord Extreme Fire had not acted in time and injected the power of his essence spirit into the Dharmic Seal, he would have died in Thousand Demon Valley. The power of the Rolai Dharmic Seal released was indeed terrifying. An Overlord was killed by that tiny golden word. This time round, Su Zimo had advanced to the void reversion realm. With the help of the three top-tier cultivation techniques of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects, his black-haired essence spirit consciousness could extend 500 kilometers and was comparable to the essence spirit of a Dharma characteristic. Therefore, he attempted to release the Rolai Dharmic Seal again. However, he had still underestimated the requirements of the Rolai Dharmic Seal on the essence spirit. Although the golden word was successfully condensed, the black-haired essence spirit's light dimmed and was nearly sucked dry by the golden word. Su Zimo felt a wave of dizziness, and his body swayed. It was way too scary. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. The power of his essence spirit was still insufficient. He could not use this essence spirit secret skill so casually in the future. He could only attempt it if his cultivation realm increased by 1 or 2 levels and the power of his essence spirit was raised. Malevolent Earth, watch out! Dao being Zephyr Thunder reminded hurriedly. In midair, the golden word shone brightly and charged towards the Mystic Magnet Mountain. A Dharmic weapon like the Mystic Magnet Mountain could not defend against an essence spirit secret skill at all. In the blink of an eye, the golden word passed through the Mystic Magnet Mountain and descended before Dao being Malevolent Earth. The golden word advanced and the void was collapsing. That golden word carried an aura that could suppress and destroy everything as it collided head-on. Dao being Malevolent Earth's pupils constricted. He clearly knew that this was a terrifying essence spirit secret skill, but he could not defend against it. He had just released his essence spirit secret skill and could not condense it again within a short period of time. In the blink of an eye, the golden word imprinted itself on Dao being Malevolent Earth's glabella and disappeared instantly. Dao being Malevolent Earth shuddered. The next moment, his gaze turned dull and lifeless. His expression froze and his life force drained rapidly. The surroundings were so silent that a pin drop could be heard. All the cultivators widened their eyes and opened their mouths slightly, looking at Dao being Malevolent Earth in shock. Thump! Under countless gazes, Dao being Malevolent Earth fell to the ground. He laid on the ground without any wounds on his body at all. However, he was lifeless and no different from a corpse. His life force had dissipated entirely. Dao being Malevolent Earth's consciousness was calm and silent as well. His essence spirit had already been crushed into dust by the golden word and dissipated within his consciousness. His essence spirit was destroyed. The titular disciple of Malevolent Earth's sect was killed by the Rolide Dharmic seal and died. Chapter 1029 Killing Titular Disciples Like Slaying Dogs. Chapter 1029 Killing Titular Disciples Like Slaying Dogs. In the blink of an eye, Monk Formless and Dao being Malevolent Earth, 2 great titular disciples, died. Outside the 3 tribulations domain, there was silence. Many cultivators who were watching looked at Su Zimo in horror, as though they had seen a ghost. Nobody expected that Su Zimo, who had returned after merely 20 days, would be so domineering. 4 titular disciples joined forces while Dao being hidden death hid in the vicinity, awaiting an opportunity to strike. Yet, the outcome was the death of 2 titular disciples. The number 1 monster incarnate in history had truly risen. Many cultivators had the same thought. They were not the only ones. At that moment, Dao being Heavenly Dipper and Dao being Zephyr Thunder's eyes were filled with shock as well. The tides are on the side of that person. Who can suppress him in the Dao inheritance ground? At that moment, both of their hearts shuddered. There were already 4 titular disciples who died in Su Zimo's hands. The tides were forged in his favor with the blood of titular disciples. Who could match his invincible might? When a butcher killed many dogs, an invisible aura would form around him. Any dog with a bit of intelligence would be able to sense it, and not dare to get close. Once a butcher's eyes widened, even the fiercest dog would have to flee with its tail between its legs. But now, Su Zimo was killing titular disciples. He killed titular disciples like he was killing dogs. At the same time that he used his essence spirit secret skill to kill Dao being Malevolent Earth, Su Zimo's essence spirit became extremely weak and he even felt dizzy. He stood on the spot motionlessly. In reality, this was the only chance for Dao being Zephyr Thunder, Dao being Heavenly Dipper, and Dao being Hidden Death to attack. Unfortunately, the 3 of them were stunned by the scene of Dao being Malevolent Earth's death. They hesitated and did not make a move to either fight or retreat. Su Zimo stood quietly for a moment, and snapped out of his stupor. Swallowing a few elixirs, he put away the Mystic Magnet Mountain and strode towards Dao being Heavenly Dipper with a cold gaze. Although the 3 of them were hesitant, Su Zimo was a decisive person. Those titular disciples did not care about their reputation and joined forces to kill him in the Dao inheritance ground, causing Demoness Ji and Mingjin to barely survive, and he almost died as well. The moment he walked out of the Three Tribulations domain, he was prepared to start a massacre. Dao being Heavenly Dipper was a titular disciple after all and calmed down swiftly when he saw Su Zimo charging over. In his eyes stars flickered and transformed in a mysterious manner. Su Zimo, you've just entered the Void Reversion realm. How much strength and methods do you have left after the consecutive battles? Dao being Heavenly Dipper hollered with a domineering might. His words were also a reminder to Dao being Zephyr Thunder and Dao being Hidden Death, who were hiding in the shadows. He wanted the two of them to be resolute and continue working together to kill Su Zimo. It's enough to kill you! Su Zimo arrived before Dao being Heavenly Dipper with a murderous aura. Waving his left hand, the creation green lotus shone brightly and tore through the void, releasing streams of chaos chi towards Dao being Heavenly Dipper. Dao being Heavenly Dipper was shocked. Although the green and crystalline lotus looked fragile enough to be broken with a single attack, its might was terrifying and could even shatter Khanate Dao being Dharmic weapons. This was how Dharmic weapons increased the combat strength of a cultivator. Many times, a powerful Dharmic weapon could even help cultivators kill those above their level. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's eyes flickered with a calm expression. First, he channeled the ancient legacy of his sect, the astral elephant Saber, and slashed it at the creation green lotus. Thereafter, he gripped Heaven Splitter tightly with his other hand and thrust it towards Su Zimo's chest. Saber intent burst forth. Although the astral elephant Saber was also a Khanate Dao being Dharmic weapon, it had been passed down through the ages and could not destroy the might of the creation green lotus with a single slash. Furthermore, Dao being Heavenly Dipper's counterattack was not merely a passive defense. There was also the retaliation of Heaven Splitter. Two gigantic stars appeared in Dao being Heavenly Dipper's eyes, replacing his pupils. All of a sudden, two beams of starlight shot out from Dao being Heavenly Dipper's eyes without warning, piercing towards Su Zimo's face. Astral Eye. This was the inheritance visual technique of Heavenly Dipper sect and was extremely powerful. Even though he was faced with the invincible tides forged after killing 4 titular disciples, Dao being Heavenly Dipper showed no fear and released all his trump cards with a powerful counterattack. When he saw that, Dao being Zephyr Thunder's eyes flashed with lightning. Narrowing his gaze, he made up his mind and charged towards Su Zimo's side. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's methods were suffocating. After all, there was only a single creation green lotus. If the two of them cooperated well, they could definitely kill Su Zimo here. TSK. 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 The moment the stars appeared in Dao being Heavenly Dipper's eyes, Su Zimo's right eye shone with sword lights. The sword lights formed a sword formation in midair. It was the illumination sword formation. The starlight descended and collided with the sword formation, causing a loud bang. The sword formation dissipated immediately, and starlight scattered in a bedazzling manner. Dao being Heavenly Dipper only felt his vision blur and narrowed his eyes instinctively. When he opened his eyes again, his body shuddered as though he was pulled by some mysterious force, and he dodged to the side. The two sabers seemed like they were about to leave his hands, as well as the saber intent that he had just condensed dissipated instantly. A gray mountain stood beside Su Zimo, exuding a mysterious aura as it sucked Dao being Heavenly Dipper's 2 sabers. The moment Dao being Zephyr Thunder arrived behind Su Zimo, the hammer in his hands tilted and he staggered, almost being dragged by the mystic magnet mountain as well. It was the ancient unique treasure, the mystic magnet mountain. After killing Dao being Malevolent Earth, Su Zimo had already retrieved the treasure. By releasing it at this critical moment, he instantly undid the combined attack of the 2 titular disciples. Even though the attacks of the 2 titular disciples stopped, Su Zimo's movements did not pause at all. The jade green lotus platform fell and smashed towards Dao being Heavenly Dipper's head. At that moment, Dao being Heavenly Dipper wielded 2 sabers that were drawn in by the mystic magnet mountain, causing it to seem as though he was stuck in a swamp. If he did not let go, there was no way he could avoid the creation green lotus. However, if he let go, he would lose 2 connate Dharmic weapons. In the blink of an eye, Dao being Heavenly Dipper made a decision. He released his grip and abandoned his connate Dharmic weapons, retreating in a bid to escape. Right then, a strange black light shone in Su Zimo's eyes. Caught off guard, Dao being Heavenly Dipper exchanged glances with him, and his mind went blank momentarily. Heavenly Fiend Eye. Starlight shone brightly in Dao being Heavenly Dipper's spirit consciousness, creating massive waves. Dao being Heavenly Dipper jolted awake instantly. Another visual technique. Out of fright, Dao being Heavenly Dipper broke out in cold sweat. If it was anyone else, even if they were not controlled by the Heavenly Fiend Eye, they would not be able to wake up so quickly. However, it was already too late for Dao being Heavenly Dipper to escape from the attack range of the creation Green Lotus with that slight delay. He tugged his waist and crushed a jade accessory that hung on it. Swoosh! A bedazzling light flashed and enveloped him. Protection Dharmic weapon! Boom! At the same time that the protection Dharmic weapon was formed, the creation Green Lotus struck it with a loud bang. Crack! 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 The creation Green Lotus shattered the barrier of the protection Dharmic weapon with a single attack. Dao being Heavenly Dipper seized the opportunity to retreat. Su Zimo flicked his wrist, and the creation Green Lotus spun in his palm. The seemingly weak lotus leaf brushed past Dao being Heavenly Dipper's throat gently. Shing! A stream of blood spewed out. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's head was sliced off neatly. The edges of the lotus leaf were sharper than divine weapons. Chapter 1030 Pursuit. Chapter 1030 Pursuit. Although Dao being Heavenly Dipper was a titular disciple with rich experience and knowledge, he knew nothing about the creation Green Lotus. Or rather, not many people in the cultivation world knew about the creation Green Lotus. Dao being Heavenly Dipper had not expected that the thin and crystalline lotus leaf would possess such a terrifying lethality. This method of killing was truly unconstrained and unreasonable. However, the outcome was extremely cruel. His head was severed and his body was crippled. A small glowing human flew out from the head. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's essence spirit had a frightened expression and wanted to escape like a stray dog. Oem! Su Zimo chanted Sanskrit, and the damning mantra descended. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's essence spirit shuddered and the light that surrounded it dimmed significantly. Ma! The damning mantra sounded again. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's body shuddered once more and the light on his essence spirit became almost negligible. N.I. Pa! Su Zimo did not pause at all and released 4 Sanskrit words of the damning mantra consecutively, not giving Dao being Heavenly Dipper any chance to catch his breath. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's essence spirit paused in midair step by step. He had just taken 4 steps when cracks appeared on his essence spirit. Without the protection of his body, his essence spirit could not withstand the repeated attacks of the 4 Sanskrit words of the damning mantra and his life force vanished as he fell from midair. Dao being Heavenly Dipper was dead. The initially restless crowd had already quietened down and was silent. All the cultivators held their breaths and focused, as though they were oppressed by an indescribable aura. None of them dared to speak, afraid that a catastrophe would befall them. Including Dao being Heavenly Dipper, there were already 5 titular disciples who died in the Dao inheritance ground. Furthermore, all of them died in the hands of a single person. What was even more frightening was that the number might increase further. Dao being Zephyr Thunder was retreating. A look of panic finally appeared in his eyes. He did not want any treasures or the Purple Thunder manual anymore. It did not matter even if he was disgraced. Right now, he only wanted to leave the Dao inheritance ground alive. This place was a nightmare for the titular disciples. Right then, Su Zimo turned around slowly and his gaze landed on Dao being Zephyr Thunder's face. It was as cold as a knife and chilling to the bones. Dao being Zephyr Thunder realized that he might not be able to escape. Desolate Marshal, you've killed way too many people this time round. Dao being Zephyr Thunder suddenly spoke. Oh? Su Zimo raised his brow and asked. So what? Dao being Zephyr Thunder said. Titular disciples have an extremely high status in the super sections. While the super sects might not be bothered if normal cultivators in the sect were killed, they will definitely not let you off if the titular disciples are killed. By now, there are already 5 titular disciples that have fallen in your hands. This means that you've already offended 5 super sects. 100 Refinement sect alone won't be able to protect you. If Extreme Fire is stubborn, the only outcome will be for 100 Refinement sect to be destroyed along with you. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he asked with a fake smile. So? Dao being Zephyr Thunder was enraged. He had said so much, but Su Zimo did not take it seriously at all. Given his status and reputation in the cultivation world, who would dare to be so rude and look down on him? However, he suppressed his anger very quickly. Given the pressing circumstances, he could only swallow everything. Dao being Zephyr Thunder took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. Therefore, you've already killed enough titular disciples. If you attack me as well, you'll have to face the revenge of the 6 super sections. You won't be able to take it. Oh. Su Zimo replied indifferently and said in a nonchalant manner. So what? I'll kill as many as they come. The reason why I'm at this level today is because I've trampled on the corpses of countless paragons. Fufu. Dao being Zephyr Thunder laughed as well. Desolate Marshal, I don't think you understand what I mean. If the 6 super sects want to take revenge, they won't send void reversions after you. They're going to send Dharma characteristics and conjoined bodies. The crowd stirred. Many cultivators knew that Dao being Zephyr Thunder's words were not meant to scare Su Zimo. The death of a titular disciple was definitely a major event for the super sects. It was normal for Dharma characteristic Dao lords or conjoined body mighty figures to appear. There's something that I've never understood. Su Zimo smiled faintly and asked. In the Dao inheritance ground, you guys were the ones who ganged up on me but were killed instead. How can the sects behind you have the cheek to seek revenge on me or even send forth Dharma characteristics and conjoined bodies? Dao being Zephyr Thunder felt a burning sensation on his face. Under normal circumstances, in the cultivation world, even if someone was killed in a fight between cultivators of the same cultivation realm, experts of the sect would not show themselves. That was because the escalation of the conflict might result in a chaotic battle between 2 major sects, or even multiple factions, and the situation would get out of hand. Throughout history, there have been countless such painful lessons. Therefore, generally speaking, if cultivators of the same cultivation realm were to fight, even if one of them were to die, it would only be because their skills were inferior and no experts of the sect would seek revenge. However, Su Zimo's situation was different. Behind him was a declining 100 Refinement sect. However, 100 Refinement sect was only one of the unorthodox groups. Even if there was an expert like Extreme Fire, there was no way he could stop super sects like the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects. Most importantly, Su Zimo had already formed a feud with the super sections. They would definitely not allow such a terrifying monster incarnate to grow. Out of fear, the super sects would definitely take action. If such a monster incarnate were to enter the Dharma characteristic realm, there wouldn't be many people in the cultivation world who could subdue him. No matter what, you've already offended so many sections. It's not good for you to incur the wrath of my Zephyr Thunder Palace as well. Dao being Zephyr Thunder said in a deep voice. Although he said it beautifully, many cultivators could tell that Dao being Zephyr Thunder was begging for mercy. Su Zimo sneered internally. Even if he wanted to stop, Zephyr Thunder Palace would not let him off. As long as he did not hand over the Purple Thunder Manual, Zephyr Thunder Palace would continue to hunt him down. There's something you didn't get right. Su Zimo looked at Dao being Zephyr Thunder and said slowly. Since I've already offended so many sects, I don't mind adding your sect in as well. Crack! In a flash of lightning, Su Zimo had already vanished from the spot and was charging towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder. Zephyr Thunder escape. Dao being Zephyr Thunder seemed to be prepared for this. Without saying a word, he swept his body with a violent gust of wind and burst forth with lightning before turning to flee. The two cultivators were extremely fast and passed through the crowd instantly. Suddenly, a gigantic pair of Dharmic power wings grew from Suzumo's back. Ethereal wings was a secret skill comprehended by an ancient mighty figure through observing the Rakshasa race. Although its speed was far from the frightening speed of the Rakshasa race, coupled with lightning escape, Suzumo's speed doubled once again. Kill! He roared and thunderclap kill burst forth. Boom! Dao being Zephyr Thunder felt as though a thunderclap had exploded in his ears and the blood chi in his body churned. It was extremely uncomfortable and his movement technique slowed down. That delay allowed Suzumo to catch up from behind. Waving the creation green lotus in his hands, it shone brightly and smashed down towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder. Chapter 1031 Soul's Search. Chapter 1031 Soul's Search. Desolate Marshal, you've gone too far! Dao being Zephyr Thunder twisted his body in midair with widened eyes. With a long roar, he swung his hammer and struck towards the creation green lotus. Boom! The creation green lotus collided against the Zephyr Thunder hammer with a loud bang. The Zephyr Thunder hammer was a legacy Dharmic weapon of the ancient era of the Zephyr Thunder Palace. Although the creation green lotus was powerful, it could not destroy the former with a single strike. However, things were not looking great for Dao being Zephyr Thunder. The power of the creation green lotus surged into his body through the Zephyr Thunder hammer, causing his body to fall rapidly, and his arm that held the Zephyr Thunder hammer to tremble slightly. In melee combat, he was no match for Suzumo at all. Furthermore, Suzumo possessed a killing weapon like the creation green lotus. Apocalyptic Five Thunders! As Dao being Zephyr Thunder retreated, he conjured hand seals and released the legacy phenomenon of Zephyr Thunder Palace in the form of a Dharmic art. Bang! Boom! Boom! In the firmaments, the dark clouds were thick and heavy like lead, shimmering with streaks of lightning. A dull thunder rumbled as though a god was riding on a chariot. There were a total of 5 divine thunderbolts. Each one was more terrifying than the last. If 5 of them were gathered, they would be able to destroy the world. Dao being Zephyr Thunder believed that Suzumo had expended a lot of energy fighting the 4 titular disciples consecutively. Right now, the latter did not have much Dharmic powers left, and it would be difficult for him to defend against his apocalyptic 5 thunders. In reality, Dao being Zephyr Thunder was right. Given Suzumo's current condition, his essence spirit was weak and it was indeed difficult for him to form Dharmic arts. However, he had the creation green lotus. After the creation green lotus entered its mature stage, not only did its power increase tremendously, it also had many mysterious and shocking aspects. Suzumo injected the remaining Dharmic powers in his body into the creation green lotus, and with a single thought, it expanded rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it had already surpassed Suzumo. The gigantic lotus floated in midair and blocked the first thunderbolt that descended with ease. That's only the first bolt. The more powerful ones are yet to come! Dao being Zephyr Thunder grit his teeth and channeled his Dharmic powers while changing hand seals. Before long, a second thunderbolt was formed beneath the dark clouds. You don't have a chance anymore, Suzumo said indifferently. He released his grip and under countless gazes, the creation green lotus rose rapidly towards the dark clouds in the skies. The entire world was filled by the green lotus. The stem of the lotus was green and straight as it rose into the skies. The gigantic lotus leaves blotted out the skies as though they were enveloping all the cultivators in the world. One end of the green lotus platform broke through the pitch-black clouds and 6 layers of lotus petals bloomed layer by layer, filled with endless light. What happened was way too shocking. All the cultivators seemed incomparably tiny before the green lotus. This is the true creation green lotus! That was the only thought in the minds of many cultivators. Their eyes were widened and their mouths were agape with shock. They could no longer speak. A green lotus rose from the ground, threatening to break through the firmaments and shatter the void. The green lotus swayed and rays of light filled the skies. The entire space of the Dao inheritance ground trembled. Many cultivators had a feeling that if not for the wills of many ancient mighty figures stabilizing this space, the creation green lotus would have been able to pierce a hole in the skies. The thick dark clouds that Dao being Zephyr Thunder created were torn apart by a simple sway of the creation green lotus. Multicolored light filled the air and punctured the dark clouds. The divine thunder vanished instantly. Before the second bolt of divine thunder descended, the apocalyptic five thunders was already shattered into pieces by the creation green lotus. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's face turned pale. In the face of the creation green lotus, none of the titular disciples could withstand a single blow. It was way too scary. With such a terrifying Dharmic weapon as a support, who could stop this monster incarnate in the future? Shoo! A green light flashed. The creation green lotus returned to its original size and returned to Su Zimo's palm. Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he charged towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder without giving him a chance to catch his breath. What other methods do you have? Release them all! Su Zimo hollered and waved the creation green lotus, causing it to sway gently. Endless rays of light shone towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder. A look of despair flashed through Dao being Zephyr Thunder's eyes. What else could he do? Even if he was at his peak condition, he could only die here under the suppression of the creation green lotus. He suddenly felt a sense of regret. If he had retreated in time, if he had been more decisive, if he had not been so greedy, he might not have died here. Thousands of thoughts surged into his mind and turned into an indignant roar. Dao being Zephyr Thunder was a titular disciple after all and would definitely not surrender. After severing all thoughts, he swung the Zephyr Thunder hammer with both hands, creating a tornado that connected heaven and earth as he charged towards Su Zimo. Boom! The creation green lotus collided with the tornado and exploded. The tornado dissipated and the Zephyr Thunder hammer fell to the side. Dao being Zephyr Thunder opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood as his body fell limply to the back. Suddenly, a beam of light flew out from his head and escaped into the distance. The crowd was in an uproar when they saw that Dao being Zephyr Thunder's body was not damaged to the point where he had to abandon it. However, in order to escape, Dao being Zephyr Thunder abandoned his body and released his essence spirit, speeding into the distance at his fastest speed. Foo! Su Zimo chuckled. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit, who had not escaped far away, suddenly paused and looked ahead in horror. In front of him and behind him were two shimmering green lotus seeds that shone with a sharp glint. Prior to this, 52 green lotus seeds had already returned to the lotus platform after clashing against the essence spirit secret skills of the four titular disciples. Of the 54 green lotus seeds, there were still 2 left. However, they were unaffected and were still emitting a glow. They transformed into 2 flying swords that blocked Dao being Zephyr Thunder. Su Zimo had expected that Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit would leave his body, and he had already released the 2 green lotus seeds. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit stirred and the 2 green lotus seeds chased after him. Su Zimo walked towards Dao being Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit, and asked in a seemingly casual manner, Zephyr Thunder, do you know why I left you for last? When the 4 titular disciples besieged Su Zimo, the order of his counterattack varied. Why? At this point, Dao being Zephyr Thunder knew that he was bound to die. Instead, he calmed down and asked. Su Zimo said coolly, That's because while you want my Purple Thunder Manual, I want your Green Thunder Manual as well. Ha ha! Dao being Zephyr Thunder reared his head in laughter. Desolate Marshal, oh Desolate Marshal, you're still too young. How can the storage bags of us cultivators contain secret skills exclusive to our sex? It's easy for you to kill me, but you're dreaming if you want to obtain the Green Thunder Manual. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's eyes were filled with mockery, as though he could die in peace if Su Zimo was dealt a blow before he died. Arriving in front of Dao being Zephyr Thunder, Su Zimo grabbed his essence spirit and said indifferently, Not necessarily. Soul-searching art. Su Zimo called softly. Chapter 1032. Chapter 1032, Great Void Spirit Refinement Section. This was the first time Su Zimo had used the soul-searching art after devouring the essence spirit that was reborn from half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky and cultivating the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. Although there was no offensive essence spirit Dharmic formulation in the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra, this essence spirit secret skill was extremely terrifying as well. If used properly, it would be extremely useful. A transparent ball of light appeared in Su Zimo's palm and Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit was within it, filled with fear. Black Fiend Chi appeared on the surface of the ball of light, and coiled around Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit as though it possessed spirit consciousness. In the blink of an eye, Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder's body was shrouded by a large amount of pitch-black Fiend Chi. Like chains, he was rooted to the ball of light and could not move at all. Immediately after, a large amount of unfamiliar memories surged into Su Zimo's mind. The soul-searching art was not without restrictions. If he were to search through all of Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder's memories, it would be the memories of a cultivator's entire life. Thousands of years were too many and complex for Su Zimo to handle. Furthermore, the soul-searching art might fail midway. The best way was to browse quickly. Insignificant memories were viewed fleetingly. He only stopped when there was useful information and took out that portion of memories to memorize. Su Zimo held the creation green lotus in his left hand and shook it gently. Lowering his head, memories flashed through his mind. As time passed, Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit within the ball of light withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. While his life force was still present, the light on his essence spirit was dimming. Ah! Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder let out a tragic cry within the ball of light. He felt as though something that originally belonged to him was being extracted bit by bit, irreversibly. It was an extremely uncomfortable feeling. While the soul-searching art extracted memories, it would also cause irreversible damage to the essence spirit. Therefore, even if the essence spirit survived, it would definitely lose its memories or turn into an idiot. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's eyes lit up. The memory fragments that were initially flashing through his mind suddenly stopped and began to flow slowly. It was a secret inheritance chamber in Zephyr Thunder Palace. An old man with a dignified expression handed a slightly yellowed ancient book to Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder. There were 3 words written on the ancient book: Green Thunder Manual. Remember, this Green Thunder Manual is not a complete cultivation technique. You have to fuse it with the Purple Thunder Manual in order to create the Great Void Spirit Refinement section. In the Great Void Spirit Refinement section, there's an essence spirit secret skill known as the Fury of Thunder, and it's extremely powerful. In the ancient era, there were countless experts from foreign races who died under the Fury of Thunder. The old man from Zephyr Thunder Palace said sternly. The scene continued. Cultivate this Green Thunder Manual here. After memorizing it, I'll return it to its original spot, said the old man from Zephyr Thunder Palace. In the scene, as Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder browsed through the Green Thunder Manual, Su Zimo memorized its contents as well. It was an extremely mysterious feeling. He had obtained a top-tier cultivation technique by absorbing another person's memories. If it was in the past, Su Zimo would not have dared to even think about it. Such treacherous methods were completely beyond his knowledge. After memorizing the Green Thunder Manual, Su Zimo wanted to browse through Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder's other memories to see if there were any powerful cultivation techniques or secret skills that he could retrieve. However, he suddenly felt the scene before him blur. Immediately after, the Fiend Chi within the ball of light in his palm snapped. The soul-searching art had ended. Thankfully, he browsed through it quickly and found an important part like the Green Thunder Manual. Otherwise, if he were to look at it bit by bit, the soul-searching art might have ended before he even got through the teenage memories of Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder. Within the ball of light, Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder's gaze was unfocused, and he looked like he was in a daze. There was no pity in Su Zimo's eyes as he exerted strength in his palm and crushed Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder's essence spirit. If he were to fall into Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder's hands, his outcome would be even more tragic. Dao Bing Zephyr Thunder was dead. At this point of the battle, the dust had already settled. Outside the Three Tribulations domain, four titular disciples tried to kill Su Zimo but were completely annihilated. None of them survived. Many cultivators looked at the battlefield with conflicted expressions. Sigh, I truly did not expect this to be the outcome of this battle. As expected of the strongest monster incarnate in history. I heard that his strength is even greatly restricted in the Dao inheritance ground. It's hard to imagine how strong he would be outside. Desolate Martial wishes to establish a Dao and impart martial to all living beings. It might not be a bad thing for the cultivation world to have someone with his ambition and boldness. Fufu, how can the 6 super sects allow Dao being Desolate Martial to continue growing after suffering such a huge loss? They will definitely kill him. Agreed. If not for the fact that the power of a conjoined body mighty figure could not penetrate the Dao inheritance ground, there might have already been some mighty figures who could not sit still. Many cultivators did not disperse and discuss softly. In reality, they were not wrong. Dao being Heavenly Dipper, Dao being Zephyr Thunder, and the other few titular disciples were dead, and the cultivation world outside had long exploded. Glass Palace, Formless Monastery, Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, and even Poison Sect were making huge moves, preparing to kill their way into 100 Refinement Sect. Ever since the end of that catastrophe 10,000 years ago, while the bloodshed in the cultivation world had never ended, there were rarely any major events that required a conjoined body mighty figure to make an appearance. However, this time round, more than one conjoined body mighty figure had appeared. Instantly, Tianhuang mainland was in turmoil. Middle Continent, 100 Refinement Sect. News of the Dao inheritance ground had already spread to 100 Refinement Sect. Everyone in the sect was shocked. As for 1,000 Crane Sect's spirit cranes, they covered Tianhuang mainland. The movements of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect, Formless Monastery, and other super sects were also spread to 100 Refinement Sect. In the 100 Refinement main hall, the expressions of extreme fire, and the others were extremely grim. What should we do? Although Dao Lord White Flames knew that Su Zimo was the disciple of Grandmaster Extreme Fire, he was a little anxious right now. As the sect master of 100 Refinement Sect, he naturally had to think for 100 Refinement Sect and said in a deep voice, Grandmaster Extreme Fire, please forgive me for being blunt, but we can't protect Uncle Master Su. He's in big trouble this time round. Extreme Fire frowned slightly and asked coldly, Is he to blame for this? How do you expect him to face the combined attacks of those titular disciples? Should he have stood on the spot and allowed them to slaughter him? The 3 consecutive questions stumped Dao Lord White Flames, causing him to sweat profusely. But Dao Lord White Flames was extremely anxious and wanted to speak, but stopped. Extreme Fire, White Flames is also thinking for 100 Refinement Sect. With a calm expression, Shang Guanzi said in a deep voice, He's right. 100 Refinement Sect won't be able to protect Su Zimo. Even if the 4 unorthodox groups join forces, we won't be able to. The 4 unorthodox groups specialized in weapon refinement and talisman crafting. In terms of combat strength, they were far inferior to the experts of the 9 immortal sects, 7 fiend sects, and 6 Buddhist monasteries. Even in 100,000 years, the unorthodox groups might not be able to produce another expert the same level as Extreme Fire. Chapter 1033 He's Desolate Martial. Chapter 1033 He's Desolate Martial. That's right. Elder Gu nodded as well. We all understand that this child is decent and even saved your life. You may not want him to die, but the reality is right in front of you. 100 Refinement Sect can't protect him. Elder Gu suggested. Why don't we send the child away after he comes out? To where? Shang Guanzi frowned. Who in Tianhuang mainland would dare to have anything to do with this lad? Should we ask Enigma Palace to step in? Elder Goose said in a low voice. Enigma Palace has always been fair and impartial. Su Zimo is not at fault for this matter, they might be able to protect him. Furthermore, Enigma Palace does have the capability to do so. If there was any faction in Tianhuang mainland that could defend against the attacks of 6 super sects, it was probably the most mysterious Enigma Palace. It's useless. Shangguanzi shook her head. If the 6 super sects make things difficult for us, they don't even have to use the excuse of taking revenge for their titular disciples. They can just say that they're exterminating evil and fiends. No matter how strong Enigma Palace is, they wouldn't dare to take on such a huge pressure and protect a cultivator who might be a fiend demon. That's not in line with what Enigma Palace does. Elder Gu and the others knew that Shangguanzi was right. Everyone exchanged glances and sighed deeply. This was a dead end that could not be broken. Extreme Fire had a dark expression, and no one knew what he was thinking about. Extreme Fire, let me say something. Don't be angry. Elder Gu was silent for a long time before saying, Right now, the only chance of survival is for Su Zimo to leave 100 Refinement Sect and survive on his own. I believe that given the child's temperament, he can understand us. Elder Gu added as well. That's right. Tianhuang mainland is boundless and might not be hopeless. At the very least, he can head to the 8 demon regions. In truth, that statement could only be used to deceive oneself. If the conjoined body mighty figures of 6 super sects of the human race were to make a move, none of the demon regions would engage in a bloody battle with the 6 super sects just for Su Zimo. Right then, Extreme Fire suddenly said, When he returns, I'll take him away from 100 Refinement Sect. From now on, we'll have nothing to do with 100 Refinement Sect anymore. Ah! Everyone exclaimed and looked at Extreme Fire in disbelief. Everyone understood that the reason why Extreme Fire said that he had nothing to do with 100 Refinement Sect was because he did not want to implicate it. With that, the 6 super sects would no longer have any reason to vent their anger on 100 Refinement Sect because of Su Zimo and him. However, no one expected that Extreme Fire would make such a huge sacrifice for Su Zimo, abandoning everything to escape to the end of the world with Su Zimo. Extreme Fire, you've just been reborn. There's no need. Shangguanzi was agitated and choked with emotions. She could not continue. Extreme Fire patted Shangguanzi's palm gently with a hint of guilt in his eyes as he said gently, Shangguan, I'm going to have to let you down again. Shangguanzi shook her head without saying anything. She merely grabbed Extreme Fire's arm and refused to let go. You guys might have misunderstood me, Extreme Fire said. The reason why I'm protecting Zimo so much, and am even willing to risk my life to escape with him, is not because he saved me in the past. It's because he is Desolate Marshal and he wishes to establish a Dao. He wishes to establish a Dao for all living beings. Just this reason alone is enough for me to do everything I can to ensure his safety, even if I die. Everyone was shocked. Elder Gu and the others shook their heads and sighed. Back then, the 3 of them courted Shangguanzi at the same time, but she chose Extreme Fire. Throughout all these years, the 2 of them still felt a trace of indignance. However, just then, they realized the difference between them and Extreme Fire. Right then, 100 Refinement Sect cultivator ran in hurriedly and panted. Sect Master, Seniors, a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord outside requests an audience. He says that he's the Azura. Everyone's expressions changed slightly. Dao Lord Azura? What is he doing here? Elder Gu frowned. Dao Lord Extreme Fire pondered for a moment before waving his hand. Let him in. Although Dao Lord Azura had a terrible reputation in the cultivation world and was cold-blooded and bloodthirsty, he seemed to have some ties with Su Zimo. Furthermore, 100 Refinement Sect had no feud with the Azura. At that moment, there was no need for the Azura to come to 100 Refinement Sect to kill anyone either. Before long, Yan Beichen strode in with a long black robe. He looked unusually pale and was expressionless. Dao Lord Extreme Fire and Shangguanzi scanned with their spirit consciousnesses and could not help but frown. Elder Gu of Elixir Yang Sect sniffed and sensed something as well. Yan Beichen was injured. Furthermore, it was an injury on the essence spirit, and was extremely difficult to repair. Extreme Fire asked indifferently, Azura, why have you come to 100 Refinement Sect? The Azura did not bow either. With a cold expression, he went straight to the point. If Su Zimo returns and 100 Refinement Sect wishes to abandon him, I'll take him away. At that point, the entire hall fell silent. Dao Lord Extreme Fire's gaze on Yen Beichen turned gentler as well. Shangwenzi asked, "Where are you taking him? Azura Sect can't protect him either. Don't forget, Malevolent Earth Sect is among the 6 major sections. The world is vast and we can settle anywhere." Yen Beichen was still expressionless as he said indifferently. All the cultivators in the hall fell silent. The legendary cold-blooded and bloodthirsty Azura actually made the same decision as Extreme Fire after hearing the news of the 6 major sects. Abandoning the status and reputation of the cultivation world, they were willing to protect Su Zimo and escape together. Who said that such a person was cold-blooded and heartless? Dao Lord Extreme Fire looked at Yen Beichen and said softly, "If I'm not wrong, your Essence Spirit's injuries are not light. Were you injured when you killed Dao Lord Immortal Sword and the others?" Yen Beichen remained silent as a form of acknowledgement. It's very difficult to recover from an injury like yours. Instead of resting and recuperating properly, you want to escape to the end of the world with someone else? Do you want to die? Dao Lord Extreme Fire asked again. "I'll do my best." Yen Beichen lowered his head slightly and replied. Even if he was severely injured, he had to protect Su Zimo and escape. Elder Gu's heart skipped a beat as he lamented. Rumors are harmful, and the masses speak louder than the truth. Now that I've seen it for myself, I finally understand the Azura's nature. For some reason, Elder Gu felt his nose sting and his eyes were moist. He walked forward quickly and took out a small medicine bottle from his storage bag, handing it to Yen Beichen. "Here's a 9 Revolution Soul Return Elixir. I only have one with me and it's good for your Essence Spirit's injuries. Hurry and accept it." Everyone present was shocked. The 9 Revolution Soul Return Elixir was a spirit elixir from the ancient era and its refinement method had long been lost. Every time it was used, there would be one less. Most importantly, the 9 Revolution Soul Return Elixir could be considered as the best elixir to repair one's Essence Spirit. That elixir was definitely a priceless treasure. In the cultivation world, even conjoined body mighty figures would fight to the death for it. However, despite Elder Gu offering such a precious item, Yen Beichen was completely unappreciative. He harumphed and turned his head with a disdainful expression. He was the Azura and had never wanted anything from anyone. How could he accept such charity? However, he seemed to have thought of something in the blink of an eye, and a hint of struggle flashed through his eyes. After hesitating for a long time, he turned around and took the bottle. "Thank you?" The Azura had never thanked anyone in his life. But today, he had broken his vow. "Take it here and recover as soon as possible," Extreme Fire said. "As for Zimo's matter, let's wait and see. There might be other ways." The Azura did not reply and merely kept the bottle carefully without consuming the 9 Revolution Soul Return Elixir. While Extreme Fire and the others were puzzled, they did not ask further. Chapter 1034 Complete Annihilation. Chapter 1034 Complete Annihilation. Although the battle outside the Three Tribulations domain had already ended, many cultivators were still lingering. Many people had yet to recover from their shock as they looked at the green-robed cultivator on the battlefield. "I reckon that from today onwards, the title of number 1 Perfected Lord will no longer belong to Desolate Marshal. Right now, he should be the number 1 Dao Lord." "Not necessarily. Don't forget about Dean." Many cultivators were shocked. They realized that there might be a shocking battle that would be even more terrifying than this. On the battlefield, Su Zimo consumed some elixirs and collected spoils from the battlefield while recovering his stamina and essence spirit. After he entered the Dao inheritance ground, almost everybody he killed were titular disciples. Although there were no cultivation techniques or secret skills in the storage bags of titular disciples, there were indeed all sorts of superior grade elixirs. The belongings of Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the other 4 titular disciples were also good stuff. Disregarding the items in their storage bags, The Destiny Dharmic weapons of the four of them alone were Khanate Dharmic weapons that originated from the ancient era. They could even withstand the creation Green Lotus without shattering. Right then, Suzumo's heart skipped a beat and a cold glint flashed through his eyes. Turning his head slightly, he looked into the void not far away. No matter what, Desolate Marshal established his Dao and killed 4 titular disciples right after entering the void reversion realm. His momentum is truly unstoppable. That's right, only Dao being hidden death left. Dao being hidden death sure is smart. He did not attack the entire time and managed to avoid a calamity. The discussions continued. Dao being hidden death had not gone far and was hidden nearby. When he heard the discussions of many cultivators, he felt bitterness in his mouth. Ever since the battle broke out, he had been hovering around Suzumo, waiting for an opportunity to launch a fatal attack. However, he did not attack the entire time. It was not that he did not want to, but he truly did not have a chance. The 4 titular disciples released their essence spirit secret skills at the same time. At that time, he had just appeared before concealing himself right away. Even if he attacked then, he would not be able to hurt Suzumo at all. That was because Suzumo had an essence spirit Dharmic weapon that he had yet to use. It could defend against his essence spirit secret skill at least once. It was meaningless to attack like that. Therefore, he hid himself once more and waited patiently. However, as time passed by and the titular disciples died one after another in Suzumo's hands, he suddenly realized that his chances were decreasing. When all 4 of the titular disciples were dead, he did not dare to move anymore. Compared to Heavenly Dipper and the others, at least I'm alive. Dao being hidden death consoled himself. Right then, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine and his hair stood on end. Suzumo turned around and stared at his position. Dao being hidden death felt his scalp tingle as he tried his best to channel hidden death's sex fiend technique to calm down his aura, bloodline flow and heartbeat. However, Suzumo did not retract his gaze and continued to stare at his position with a mocking gaze. How is that possible? Dao being hidden death tried his best to control his state of mind and not let his emotions fluctuate too much. He closed both eyes tightly to retract the light in them. It's impossible for him to discover my tracks. This must be a coincidence. Dao being hidden death chanted internally. Hidden death sex methods were assassination and concealment. This was the foundation of their sect and was also their greatest reliance. Even Dharma characteristic Dao lords would not be able to discover his tracks, let alone cultivators of the same level. Otherwise, he would have died countless times over the past thousands of years. Right then, a faint sigh sounded from the battlefield, causing his heart to sink instantly. You didn't take the opportunity to escape earlier on. There's no chance for you now. Looking at the void not far away, Suzumo's eyes lit up and he attacked brazenly. Initially, many cultivators were puzzled, wondering what Suzumo was lamenting to the air not far away. However, right after Suzumo attacked, a blurry figure suddenly appeared in the void. Dao being hidden death. The crowd was in an uproar. None of them discovered Dao being hidden death's tracks and thought that he had already left. To think that Suzumo would still be able to capture him. That's impossible! Dao being hidden death retreated and shrieked. Desolate Marshal, how did you discover my tracks? He knew that he had not revealed any flaws earlier on, and there was no way Suzumo would have noticed. However, reality was extremely cruel. One fled while the other chased, but the distance between them was closing rapidly. With just a few breaths, Dao being hidden death could already feel the pressure approaching him from behind, causing him to feel suffocated. Although he was a titular disciple of Hidden Death sect, his combat strength was far inferior to Dao being Heavenly Dipper and the others. Even Dao being Zephyr Thunder could not escape from Suzumo's pursuit, let alone him. Seeing that he had no chance of escaping, Dao being Hidden Death's eyes flashed with a ferocious glint. Turning around, he raised his sleeves and thrust out a long sword that shone with a cold glint towards Suzumo's glabella. At the same time, he activated his Essence Spirit Secret skill. God Piercer Dagger! A massive dagger made of spirit consciousness flew out from Dao Bing Hidden Death's glabella and pierced towards Su Zimo instantly. Whoosh! A Buddhist light shone brightly on Su Zimo's left wrist, forming a barrier of light around his body that shone with mysterious golden symbols. Mingwang prayer beads. Boom! The dagger struck the golden barrier with a loud bang. Instantly, the dagger dissipated and the light barrier shook violently. Although it dimmed significantly, it did not shatter. Now that Su Zimo was at the void reversion realm, the essence spirit barrier formed by his Mingwang prayer beads was even harder to take down. When he saw the incoming sword, Su Zimo did not even use the creation green lotus. He extended his right hand and placed it on the sword in a seemingly soft manner, creating a coil and a tremble. Piak! The sword was sent flying by his palm. Right then, a cold glint flashed and a chilling killing intent exploded. There was an almost transparent dagger hidden within the sword earlier on. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see anything. Shadowless dagger. A legacy Khanate Dharmic weapon of hidden death sect from the ancient era. It was completely transparent without even a shadow. The moment the sword was sent flying, Dao Bing Hidden Death whipped out his shadowless dagger and stabbed it towards Su Zimo once more. Fu! Sneering coldly, Su Zimo opened his palm and caught the incoming dagger. Poof! The shadowless dagger pierced through Su Zimo's flesh and even his palm. However, the dagger was stuck between the gaps of his bones and could not move at all. No matter how Dao Bing Hidden Death spun, he could not injure Su Zimo's right hand. Right then, the originally transparent dagger gradually revealed its tracks and the shadowless dagger turned incomparably red, like a piece of metal that was burned through. Divine Phoenix Bone! Dao Bing Hidden Death's pupils constricted as that thought flashed through his mind. Su Zimo took advantage of the situation and raised his palm. The scarlet shadowless dagger streaked through the air with a blood beam. Dao Bing Hidden Death's expression froze. I got it. You obtained an inheritance of the Fiend sections. That's why you can see through my tracks. After saying that, half of Dao Bing Hidden Death's head slid down slowly and his life force dissipated. Dao Bing Hidden Death's head was sliced into two by the shadowless dagger, and his essence spirit could not escape. He was dead. Chapter 1035 Fighting Dean Again. Chapter 1035 Fighting Dean Again. At this point of the battle, all 5 titular disciples were annihilated. Including Dao Bing Glass and Dao Bing Poison, 7 titular disciples died in Su Zimo's hands and were buried in the Dao inheritance ground. Later on, there were even people who called this matter the establishment of Dao by Desolate Martial and the calamity of titular disciples. It was recorded in history and was an important node of the cultivation world. Outside the 3 tribulations domain, many cultivators looked at Su Zimo with mixed emotions: caution, fear, jealousy, and respect. Su Zimo put away the shadowless dagger and Dao Bing Hidden Death's storage bag. If Dao Bing Hidden Death's tracks were exposed, his combat strength would be far inferior compared to Dao Bing Heavenly Dipper. Dao Bing Hidden Death was right. The reason why Su Zimo was able to discover his tracks was because of the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. This cultivation technique was passed down from ancient times and encompassed many things of the Fiend sections. Prior to this, as long as Dao Bing Hidden Death restrained his killing intent, it would be difficult for Su Zimo to discover his tracks even with his spirit perception. But now, after cultivating the Dao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra, he possessed an indescribable perception towards cultivators of Hidden Death sect. As long as they were within his perception range, even titular disciples would not be able to escape. Su Zimo collected the spoils of the battlefield and headed outside. Without saying anything, the crowd automatically opened up a path. Passing by the crowd, Su Zimo paused in his tracks and shouted, "Where is Dean? Has anyone seen him?" "Over there. When I saw him, he was still chasing after Dao Bing Enigma." Many cultivators in the crowd immediately stood out and pointed over. An existence like Dean would attract attention no matter where he went unless he intentionally hid himself. The Dao inheritance ground was not large, and it was easy to locate him. "Fellow Taoist Desolate Marshal, aren't you going to rest first?" In the crowd, a cultivator mustered his courage and said, "You've just fought a fierce battle. If you fight against Dean again, your chances of winning aren't high, right?" Many cultivators turned to look at that person as though they were looking at a dead man. Who was this? This was Dao, being Desolate Marshal, who had just slain 7 titular disciples. Was this person tired of living to tell him that his chances of winning weren't high? After saying that, the cultivator seemed to have realized something as well and shrank his neck in fear, not knowing what to do. "Dean is nothing!" Su Zimo smiled faintly, not bothered at all. His green robes fluttered as he strode into the distance. He did not use Dharmic powers and merely used the burst of his physical body to travel. At the same time, he consumed elixirs to recover his essence spirit. In his consciousness, the creation green lotus swayed gently and filled the place with a radiant glow. The lights on the lotus seeds had already dimmed when they collided with the essence spirit secret skills of the 4 titular disciples. Now that they had returned to the lotus platform, the glow of the green lotus seeds began recovering. They turned increasingly bright as spirit chi spread. The black-haired essence spirit sat on the lotus platform with an endless glow around it. After the creation green lotus became a grade 6 and matured, its benefits to the essence spirit would become increasingly obvious. When cultivating on the lotus platform, apart from gaining a more refined and pure essence spirit, the recovery of the essence spirit's power was also shockingly fast. He believed that his essence spirit would mostly recover by the time he arrived at where Dean was. No elixir or medicine could match his recovery speed. Su Zimo had spent a lot of time, effort, and energy to nurture the creation green lotus by gathering the power of the immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend Das. Now, the creation green lotus had finally brought him a huge opportunity. At a certain ruin, debris could be seen everywhere. A gigantic and thick stone pillar rose into the skies with a purple figure seated on it. The figure had black hair that flowed down like a waterfall, and his eyes were tightly shut. He exuded an imposing aura as though he was the ruler of the world. It was Dao, being Chaos Essence, Dean. When he caught sight of the green lotus that rose into the skies, he stopped in his tracks and no longer chased after Lin Xuanji. Instead, he sat there with his eyes closed to adjust his state. Right now, he had rested for more than an hour, and his stamina had recovered to its peak. He could vaguely guess that this time round, Heavenly Dipper and the others would not be able to stop Su Zimo after the latter left the 3 Tribulations domain. Su Zimo would definitely arrive here. "Dean, why aren't you chasing anymore?" On a dilapidated wall not far away, a pale-faced, beardless Taoist priest in grey robes sat on it, smiling at Dean. It was Lin Xuanji. "Say, you chased after me for 20 days like a mad dog. Now that everything had suddenly gone silent, I'm not quite used to it." As a disciple of Enigma Palace, Lin Xuanji was no match for Dean in terms of combat strength. However, it was almost impossible for Dean to kill him as well. "Tisk, tsk, tsk." Lin Xuanji sat on the wall and beckoned to Dean, letting out a strange sound as though he was playing with a puppy. Dean was expressionless and turned a deaf ear. Lin Xuanji wanted to disrupt his mental state on purpose, but he was unmoved. "Say, Dean, how confident are you against Su Zimo?" Even if Dean did not reply, Lin Xuanji would not sit by idly as he asked with a grin. Dean remained silent. Lin Xuanji analyzed pretentiously. "Look, Su Zimo was already able to kill titular disciples when he was at the nascent soul realm. I'm guessing that he must have obtained some sort of opportunity, and is now at the void reversion realm. Can you win a void reversion realm, Su Zimo?" Dean's heart finally stirred. If Su Zimo was at the void reversion realm, the outcome of this battle would be hard to predict. Lin Xuanji smiled gently. "Su Zimo has established his Dao heart, and his aura is exuberant right now. If he comes knocking, it means that Heavenly Dipper and the others are most likely dead. You won't be able to defend against the momentum that was created with the blood of so many titular disciples. Dean, if I were you, I would leave the Dao inheritance ground right now. He won't leave. Right then, a calm voice sounded from afar. A figure appeared on the horizon and sped over, arriving before them in the blink of an eye. Brother Su, you've indeed advanced to the Void Reversion realm. Lin Xuanji was delighted. If Su Zimo was at the Void Reversion realm, his chances of winning this battle would naturally increase. When Su Zimo saw that Lin Xuanji was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief and nodded with a smile. Brother Su, how do you know that he won't leave? Lin Xuanji asked. Su Zimo said, The fact that Dean challenged me to the Dao inheritance ground means that he was already fearful to begin with. If he can't kill me in the Dao inheritance ground, he will never get another chance ever again. This time round, if he escapes without a fight, I'll become a mental demon that he can't get rid of. Dean opened his eyes and stood up. His black hair danced and the aura within his body rose continuously as he said slowly, You're right. I can't rest easy without killing you. Fufu. Suddenly Su Zimo laughed. Dean, do you know that I, Desolate Marshal, have never considered you as an opponent? In my eyes, you're not worthy. Su Zimo said indifferently. When you set up the battlefield in the Dao inheritance ground, you've already lost. Dian's heart skipped a beat. Sensing it, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he attacked brazenly. Chapter 1036 Chaos Essence Spell. Chapter 1036 Chaos Essence Spell. At their level, they would be caught if they revealed any slight openings. The moment Dian's heart skipped a beat, Su Zimo charged forward and punched the heavenly piercing stone pillar with a loud bang. Bang! Boom! Boom! Instantly, the stone pillar collapsed, causing gravel to fly as dust billowed everywhere. Firmament! Along with a shout, Dean waved his hands and Dharmic powers surged. It was as though the entire firmament was affected as it suppressed down slowly. Previously at the Thousand Crane Tea Party, Yi Tianqing released the firmament art as well. Back then, Yi Tianqing's firmament art was created using Dharmic powers to weave a firmament to suppress them. However, Dian's firmament art was much more terrifying than what Yi Tianqing released. Dian's hands seemed as though they could tug at the entire firmaments, bringing with them an endless power as the world's might enveloped over. The firmaments covered the entire world. This was the true might of the world and was not something that humans could defend against. Many cultivators had just arrived and exclaimed in shock at the sight of this. They're fighting! The power of that Dharmic art is so terrifying that most heaven and earth Dharma characteristics won't be able to withstand it. This is the true firmament art. Let's see how Desolate Marshal reacts. In terms of Dharmic powers, the difference between the two of them is still rather obvious. Su Zimo had just entered the Void Reversion realm. However, Dian's cultivation was already at late-stage Void Reversion realm. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as his hands shifted continuously, forming hand seals one after another. Surging Fiend chi flowed out from his fingertips, pitch black as ink, and a gigantic scythe was formed between his hands. The Heavenly Fiend Scythe. Desolate Marshal has recovered so quickly. Outside the Three Tribulations domain, he couldn't even release an escape technique using his Dharmic powers. To think that he can release such a terrifying Dharmic art now! Everyone was shocked. Slay! Su Zimo roared and pointed upwards. The pitch-black scythe tore through the air, shrouded in fiend chi and surging killing intent. Even the firmament could not suppress it. Sizzle! The pitch-black scythe streaked across the firmament, and let out an ear-piercing sound. The entire firmament was sliced into two by the pitch-black scythe. That Dharmic art was condensed from the lifetime comprehension of half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky towards the Fiend Dao. Its terrifying might made up for Su Zimo's lack of Dharmic powers. All right! Dean shouted. When the voice sounded, he was still at the end of the firmament. By the time the Heavenly Fiend Scythe broke through the firmament art, he had already arrived in front of Su Zimo and slapped his gigantic palm towards the latter. The palm seemed to have disappeared in midair and turned into a gigantic millstone. It carried the power of distortion, suppression, and grinding. The void distorted and transformed as well. The Great Chaos Essence Palm. At the same time, Dian's blood chi burst forth and a series of shocking tsunami sounds echoed from all directions. Tsunami blood. He had cultivated his bloodline to its limits. When Dian charged over, his pupils constricted like a full moon that was being devoured continuously in a frightening manner. The visual technique, Eclipse Eye. Dian's eyes flashed coldly and burst forth. By releasing his blood chi, Chaos Essence Sec's secret skill and even his visual technique at the same time, Dian's aura was torrential. The reason why he did not hold back was because he wanted to maximize his advantage. He believed that Su Zimo, who could not use his blood chi right now, was definitely not his match in melee combat. Dian's movement technique was way too fast and the ferocity of his attacks was unprecedented. Even if the 4 titular disciples joined forces, they would not be a match for Dian. The pressure made Su Zimo feel suffocated. However, his expression was fearless and a green beam of light shot out from his glabella. The creation green lotus was already in his palm. The green lotus swayed and the void trembled. The 2 cold beams were blocked by the gigantic lotus leaves and dissipated instantly. The creation green lotus easily destroyed Eclipse Eye. The Great Chaos Essence Palm? Let's see if it can withstand a blow from the creation green lotus. Su Zimo sneered and swung the creation green lotus towards Dian's incoming palm. Dian's eyes flashed coldly. Before his palm could collide with the creation green lotus, a chill ran down his spine. He was confident that his body was indestructible, and even a Kane Dao being's Dharmic weapon would be turned into scrap metal if he were to use the Great Chaos Essence Palm. However, he felt a sense of uneasiness when he saw the seemingly weak green lotus platform fly over. In a flash, Dian retracted his palm and avoided a calamity. An hour ago, the creation green lotus that soared into the skies and broke through the firmaments to disperse the dark clouds left a deep impression in his mind. In the Dao inheritance ground, he was invincible in melee combat, and there was no need for him to take this risk. Do you think you're the only one with Dharmic weapons? Dian's glabella shone and a stream of light flew out, expanding rapidly in front of him. It was an ancient bell. The ancient bell was etched with mysterious and complicated runes that were bedazzling. The surroundings of the ancient bell were shrouded in mist with an extraordinary aura. There were many Dharmic weapons in the cultivation world and flying swords were the most common. Among the many Dharmic weapons, cultivators that used rare Dharmic weapons such as tripods, bells, pagodas and furnaces were generally strong and not to be provoked. Brother Su, watch out! This is the Chaos Essence Bell, a Kane Dharmic weapon refined from a replica of an Emperor weapon. It's terrifying! Lin Xuanji, who was watching from afar, reminded loudly. Although Dian had been chasing him for 20 days, as the current generation's successor of Enigma Palace, he could not help in this battle. Go! Dian summoned the Chaos Essence Bell and charged towards the creation green lotus. Clang! The green lotus platform collided with the Chaos Essence Bell and let out a crisp sound. As though a monk from a temple was striking a bell, the sound of the bell rang endlessly. Su Zimo shuddered and took half a step back. The creation green lotus did not manage to gain any advantage against the Chaos Essence Bell. The Chaos Essence Bell was definitely not a Kane Dao being Dharmic weapon. It was very likely to have reached the level of a Kane Dao Lord Dharmic weapon. Dian was extremely talented and his cultivation was at the late stage of Void Reversion realm. His essence spirit was comparable to Dharma characteristic Dao Lords and there was a high chance that he could refine his Destiny Dharmic weapon into a Dao Lord Dharmic weapon. The true terror of the Chaos Essence Bell was not its indestructibility that could withstand the impact of the creation green lotus. Instead, a bell would ring when the two collided. Although the bell's sound did not affect Dian at all, it could vibrate Su Zimo's body and organs. If it was any other cultivator, their bodies would have been injured and their eardrums would have been pierced by the bell sound of that single collision. After cultivating the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness, Su Zimo's physique was frightening. Even if he could not use his bloodline, a single sound of the bell could not hurt him. However, If they were to clash continuously and the bell sounds accumulated within his body, the damage would stack up and its impact could not be ignored. How is it, Desolate Marshal? Does it feel good? Dean held the Chaos Essence spell in high spirits, and returned to his confident and invincible state. Chapter 1037 Endless Stamina. Chapter 1037 Endless Stamina. It's just a broken bell. Su Zimo smiled indifferently. Today, I'll send you off. His palm touched his storage bag and he pulled out Heaven Splitter. Su Zimo held the creation green lotus in his left hand and Heaven Splitter in his right. He strode towards Dean with a murderous aura. Swoosh! The green lotus swayed and shone brightly as it struck towards Dean once more. The corners of Dean's mouth curled up slightly. His body was like a mountain, and he did not budge at all. Holding the Chaos Essence spell in his left hand, he injected Dharmic powers and the fog around the Chaos Essence spell intensified. Clang! The creation green lotus collided with the Chaos Essence bell and another bell sounded. However, right after, the sound of ghosts wailing and wolves howling echoed on the battlefield, suppressing the sound of the bell. Su Zimo waved Heaven Splitter in reverse and slashed out multiple Saber shadows, releasing the Ghost Howl, Purgatory and even Countercurrent Saber Intense. Multiple intents were fused together. On the battlefield, a gigantic purgatory appeared with a torrential river of blood and demonic shadows, letting out shuddering cries. Unknowingly, an ancient stone truncheon had appeared in Dean's palm. It was stained with blood and had a menacing aura. Break! Dean let out a long howl and swung the stone truncheon. As the wind howled, a series of sorrowful cries shook the world. While others did not feel anything when they heard that sound, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. His bloodline contained dragon blood. His heart actually resonated with those sorrowful cries. Those were sorrowful cries of the dragon race. Bang! 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 Dean's blood chi burst forth, and he swung the stone truncheon, crushing the purgatory that had just been formed with ease. Sparks flew when the stone truncheon struck Heaven Splitter. Su Zimo shuddered. Crack! 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 Clear cracks appeared on Heaven Splitter. This Khanate Dao being Dharmic weapon created by extreme fire was shattered by Dean's stone truncheon after a single clash, and its glow dimmed. It's the dragon battling truncheon! Lin Xuanji exclaimed with a grim expression. Dean nodded. As expected of a successor of Enigma Palace. You are knowledgeable. Brother Su, be careful. This dragon battling truncheon is a weapon from the ancient era. Although it has no grade, it's indestructible and has once injured a divine dragon. Lin Xuanji reminded hurriedly. The bloodstains on it are the blood of the divine dragon. Su Zimo recalled that the material of the stone hammer Yi Tiancheng used at the Thousand Crane Tea Party seemed to be similar to the material of the dragon battling truncheon. Lin Xuanji felt a sense of lingering fear. Thankfully, he did not clash head-on with Dean. Otherwise, he might have died in the blink of an eye once the latter brought out these weapons. Desolate Marshal, even the Dharmic weapon that you rely on the most is unable to threaten me. What other methods do you have? Dean's expression was cold, and his aura was torrential. With the Chaos Essence spell in his left hand and the dragon battling truncheon in his right, he charged towards Su Zimo. Boom! With a flip of his palm, Su Zimo brought out the mystic magnet mountain and placed it between them. However, Dean's speed did not decrease at all. Foo-foo! Dean sneered. The mystic magnet mountain is useless against the Chaos Essence bell and the dragon battling truncheon. After I entered the nascent soul realm, the Dharmic weapon I chose was specially meant to defeat you. Many cultivators felt their hearts turn cold when they heard that. How much resentment and scheming did he have to be to select a specific Dharmic weapon for this the moment he entered the nascent soul realm? Everyone suddenly realized that Su Zimo was right about one thing. He had already become Dian's mental demon. This was Dian's final chance. Su Zimo did not panic when he saw Dian crossing the Mystic Magnet Mountain with ease. Since the Mystic Magnet Mountain, he would fight then. Against Dian, Su Zimo waved the creation green lotus with his left hand and charged forward with his right fist. Clang! The green lotus and chaos essence spell collided. Swoosh! An evil wind blew. The dragon battling truncheon transformed into a streak of light and smashed down towards Su Zimo's head. Su Zimo clenched his right fist and punched with a cold gaze. Bang! The dragon battling truncheon collided with Su Zimo's right fist and gave off a dull sound of defeat. Blood flashed. Su Zimo's right fist was smashed into a pulp by the dragon battling truncheon. However, the dragon battling truncheon that could shatter Heaven's Splitter could not do the same to Su Zimo's right hand that possessed the Divine Phoenix Bone. Divine Phoenix Bone, huh? Dean smiled sinisterly. Let's see how long you can last! The two of them collided once more. Both of them held terrifying Dharmic weapons in their hands. In melee combat as such, not much techniques were involved. It was a pure clash of strength and stamina. Each collision was earth-shaking. Everywhere the two of them passed, countless ruins were trampled into ashes. Clang! 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 The chaos essence bell sounded continuously. Each time it rang, Su Zimo's body would tremble. Bang! 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 The dragon battling truncheon and Su Zimo's right hand collided repeatedly as well. There was not much flesh left on Su Zimo's right hand after it was beaten by the dragon battling truncheon. All that was left was a scarlet bone that clashed against the dragon battling truncheon. This sort of head-on clash consumed the most energy. Su Zimo's right hand was not the only thing in a tragic sight. Blood began to flow from the corner of his mouth as well. Poof! 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 His body was convulsed and suffocated by the sound of the chaos essence bell as his flesh exploded, spewing out blood that stained his green robes. Dean closed in step by step as though victory was right in front of him. His expression turned increasingly excited, and he used all his strength every single time he attacked. Su Zimo retreated continuously. Although he was covered in blood and looked extremely wretched, his eyes were unusually calm without any hint of panic. Although his body seemed to be in tatters, in reality, he was not severely injured. Furthermore, the vibration of the Chaos Essence spell caused the power of the afterglow left behind by many ancient mighty figures and was hidden within Su Zimo's body to be revealed. Those afterglows were tiny light spots that had helped Su Zimo reconstruct his body with boundless Dharmic powers. Right now, the afterglow that was left in his body was released completely and began repairing Su Zimo's body without the need to be manually controlled. On the surface, Su Zimo looked bloodied. However, at that moment, his injuries were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. His stamina was also recovering rapidly and his condition was rising continuously. Both parties did not stop at all and continued fighting for an entire hour. Even Dean felt exhausted. The toll was way too great. The sound of his blood-chi surging was not as loud as before. What shocked Dean was that even though he was extremely exhausted, Su Zimo seemed oblivious to it. It was as though he got stronger as the battle progressed. Another series of battles ensued. An hour later, Su Zimo no longer retreated. Another hour passed and Dean started retreating. His dragon battling truncheon could not shatter the Divine Phoenix Bone. The Chaos Essence spell could not suppress the creation Green Lotus either. Under such intense consumption, he gradually felt his stamina depleting. Why does Su Zimo seem to possess boundless stamina? Dean was enraged. Every time the creation Green Lotus struck the Chaos Essence spell, he would feel his arm tremble. Under the vibration, his teeth loosened and a salty taste of blood filled his mouth. Unknowingly, the tables had turned. Chapter 1038 Infinite Saber, Green Lotus Sword. Chapter 1038 Infinite Saber, Green Lotus Sword. This was a clash of pure strength. Su Zimo held the creation Green Lotus in his left hand. Each time he waved it, a glow would spread and the lotus platform would fall. It was even fiercer than the impact of a meteor. Although he did not have a weapon in his right hand, with his Divine Phoenix Bone, he was not disadvantaged against Di Yin's dragon battling Truncheon as well. This battle had stimulated the afterglow the ancient mighty figures left behind in his body at the end of the Three Tribulations domain, and provided him with an immense amount of energy. At that moment, Su Zimo was fighting fiercer and fiercer. However, Dean had already begun to retreat. He realized that he might be exhausted to death if this continued. He possessed the body-tempering inheritance of Chaos Essence Sect and Human Emperor, and his physique was terrifyingly strong with a long stamina. Even the successors of the top body-tempering sects among the Immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend sects were not his match. Or rather, he would not fear even if someone from the primordial 9 races appeared. However, he was disadvantaged against Su Zimo repeatedly. A body tempered by the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness was way too terrifying. Even if he could not channel his blood chi, the foundation of his body was still there. Given Di Yin's strength, it was impossible for him to truly destroy this body or severely injure it. All of a sudden, Di Yin's glabella shone and a terrifying spirit consciousness surged out, forming a spirit consciousness weapon that resembled a saber and sword in midair. The weapon was extremely wide and was edged on one side, like a saber. However, at the tip of the blade, there were 2 edges and it resembled a sword. The spirit consciousness weapon had the sharpness of a long sword and the ferocity of a long saber. The 2 auras fused perfectly. It's Chaos Essence Sect's top-grade Essence Spirit secret skill, Infinite Saber. Di Yin's spirit consciousness is way too terrifying. It's so strong that it's comparable to Dharma characteristic Dao Lords. Even if a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord was here, he would be killed with a single slash from the Infinite Saber. Cries of surprises came from the crowd. The Great Chaos Essence Palm and Infinite Saber were the 2 most famous secret skills of Chaos Essence Sect. Slay! After Dean controlled the Chaos Essence Bell and withstood the attack of the Creation Green Lotus, he suddenly released his Essence Spirit secret skill. The Infinite Saber tore through the air with a destructive aura. Su Zimo's expression turned grim. The might of this Essence Spirit secret skill was unprecedented. If the Mingwang prayer beads were intact with the 2 remaining Buddha beads, he might have been able to defend against it. But now, the Mingwang prayer beads was an incomplete Dharmic weapon after all. Su Zimo could sense that even if he channeled it with all his might, the barrier of the Mingwang prayer beads would not be able to defend against the sharpness of the Infinite Saber. Up till now, he only knew one Essence Spirit secret skill, the Rulite Dharmic Seal. Although his Essence Spirit that was on the Creation Green Lotus had mostly recovered, he was still unable to release the Rulite Dharmic Seal. In the battle against the 4 titular disciples earlier on, in its peak condition, his Essence Spirit was almost sucked dry and he nearly fainted. If he were to release the Rulite Dharmic Seal now, he would be exhausted to death before he could even clash with the Infinite Saber. Dean said murderously. Desolate Marshal, this battle can end now. Not necessarily. Su Zimo controlled his thoughts. Streams of light spewed out from the Green Lotus platform. There were 54 Green Lotus seeds. After the Green Lotus seeds collided with the Essence Spirit secret skills of the 4 titular disciples, their glows dimmed and they were no longer sharp. However, after returning to the Lotus platform to be nourished for a period of time, every Green Lotus seed had already recovered to its original state. It was resplendent and sharp. The 54 Green Lotus seeds gathered rapidly and disappeared in front of everyone, turning into a green sword. Lotus flowers were carved on the sword in a godly manner. Rays of light circulated on the green sword and a rosy glow filled the air. The lotus flowers seemed to have a life of their own as they bloomed silently with sword chi. Buzz! The sound of a sword buzzing rang out. The green lotus sword stabbed towards the Infinite Saber that was coming towards him. The clash between the saber and sword was silent. However, at the center of the 2 sabers and swords, countless storms were formed. Saber chi filled the air and sword chi splattered everywhere. A few cultivators who were too close and could not dodge in time were affected by the remnant spirit consciousness shockwave. The few of them were stunned and their expressions froze on their faces. They did not move at all, and the life force in their bodies dissipated rapidly as they collapsed stiffly. There were no injuries on the bodies of the few cultivators. However, their essence spirits were wiped out by the aftershock of the collision between the infinite saber and the green lotus sword. Psst! The crowd gasped. Everyone dispersed and retreated in fear of being implicated. Void Reversion Dao beings that could enter the Dao inheritance ground were definitely backed by conjoined body mighty figures. Which of them were ordinary people? However, these few Void Reversion Dao beings could not even withstand the remnant spirit consciousness shockwave of the essence spirit clash between Su Zimo and Dean. Who could imagine the power of the two essence spirit secret skills? The Green Lotus Sword was also a mysterious technique that could only be created after the creation Green Lotus reached grade 6. Every single Green Lotus seed shone with a resplendent glow and possessed a sharpness that could sever essence spirits and defend against spirit consciousness attacks. If he were to condense all the Green Lotus seeds, the Green Lotus Sword would be formed. It was a killing technique that targeted the essence spirit and possessed terrifying might. Even ordinary Dharma characteristic Dao lords could have their essence spirits severed by the Green Lotus Sword. The two essence spirit secret skills collided in midair and devoured one another. Either of them had the upper hand. The infinite saber dissipated. At the same time, the Green Lotus Sword vanished as well, turning into 54 Green Lotus seeds that were dimming. They returned to the Lotus platform and were nourished slowly. At that moment, huge waves surged in Di Yin's heart. The infinite saber was his strongest trump card. He had even killed Dharma characteristic Dao lords with that essence spirit secret skill. Even if some Dharma characteristic Dao lords could withstand it, their essence spirits would definitely be severely injured and it would be difficult for them to defend against his next attack. He had not expected that Su Zimo would be able to take on the infinite saber's attack unscathed. It's the creation Green Lotus again! Di Yin's eyes burned with rage. The creation Green Lotus was the reward for being the top of the phenomenon ranking 100 years ago. That treasure should have belonged to him. It was all because of the person in front of him who took away everything that belonged to him. Stabilize! Suddenly, Dean tossed the Chaos Essence bell in his hands into midair. A divine light burst forth from his glabella and entered the Chaos Essence bell as the bell rang. Clang! The entire void quaked for a moment. Right on the heels of that, the Chaos Essence bell released an ancient and boundless aura. Beams of mist scattered down like a waterfall and enveloped Su Zimo. Humph! Su Zimo sneered and the creation Green Lotus in his hands swayed. The Green Lotus rose in reverse and the lotus leaves extended, blocking the falling mist. The Chaos Essence spell could not suppress the creation Green Lotus at all. Go! Dean threw the dragon battling truncheon in his hands as well. The dragon battling truncheon transformed into a streak of light and shot towards the jade green lotus stem. The green lotus swayed gently and repelled the dragon battling truncheon with a gentle shake. Immediately after, the lotus leaf extended and wrapped the dragon battling truncheon. The Chaos Essence spell and the creation Green Lotus were only in a stalemate thanks to the dragon battling truncheon. As such, the creation Green Lotus could not break through the shroud of the Chaos Essence spell within a short period of time. Chapter 1039 Crushing. Chapter 1039 Crushing. In midair, the Chaos Essence spell trembled slightly above the creation Green Lotus. Dean knew that even if he abandoned the two Khanate Dharmic weapons, it was impossible for him to suppress the creation Green Lotus. However, it was enough for him as long as the three Dharmic weapons were in a stalemate. He believed that without the protection of the creation Green Lotus, Su Zimo would not be able to withstand his attacks and killing techniques. Swash! Di Yin's figure flashed, and he arrived in front of Su Zimo in the blink of an eye. The distance of dozens of feet was covered in a flash at a frightening speed. Splash! Di Yin's bloodlines surged like a tsunami, emitting a terrifying aura as he extended his palm and slapped down on Su Zimo's head. Blood chi gushed and Dharmic powers rumbled. A power as vast as the sea crushed over like a gigantic millstone that could destroy, suppress and crush everything. The Great Chaos Essence Palm. The reason why this palm technique could become Chaos Essence X's strongest secret skill was because the Great Chaos Essence Palm fused the cultivator's body, blood chi and even Dharmic powers perfectly. The power of his body and bloodline was not the only thing released from that palm strike, there was also Dharmic powers. The combination of the three powers caused the killing power of the Great Chaos Essence Palm to reach its limits. That was the reason why Dean managed to shatter Su Zimo's inner armor with a single palm strike in the past, and even severely injure the latter. Typically speaking, only conjoined body mighty figures would have such methods. Every single move they made was the power and might of heaven and earth. Dean's movement technique was way too fast. He did not give Su Zimo any chance to dodge at all. The moment he attacked, he sealed off all of Su Zimo's escape routes. Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly and uttered Sanskrit. Pa! He placed his palms together, and his index fingers made contact. The other four fingers crossed and conjured a mysterious Dharmic seal. The immovable foundation seal. It was the only defensive seal in the damning Dharmic seal. Instantly, Su Zimo's feet seemed to have grown roots. It was like an ancient tree with countless thick roots digging deep underground, extending and grabbing onto the earth. Boom! The Great Chaos Essence Palm and immovable foundation seal clashed, sending shockwaves and Dharmic powers flying everywhere. The gigantic millstone in front of Dean spun continuously and crushed down towards Su Zimo. Crack! 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 Su Zimo's body shuddered and the roots of Dharmic powers beneath his feet snapped. Even the immovable foundation seal could not withstand the might of the Great Chaos Essence Palm. Su Zimo was pushed back. The Divine Phoenix bone was indestructible and could withstand the sharpness or attacks of connate Dharmic weapons. However, its true strength was difficult to activate and posed no threat to Dean. Dean's judgment of the situation was extremely precise. Unable to use the creation Green Lotus or activate his blood chi, it was as though Su Zimo had lost two arms. It was difficult for him to fight. Boom! Dean did not show mercy after gaining the upper hand. He strode forward and slapped down once more. A gigantic millstone appeared with an ancient aura. Mysterious marks appeared on the millstone one after another, glowing like words. Chi! Su Zimo closed his fingers and slashed gently at the incoming gigantic millstone. A blinding sword chi tore through the air. Heaven's slaying sword art! The white sword chi collided against the gigantic millstone. The millstone that was initially spinning slowly came to a sudden stop as a clear and straight sword scar appeared in the middle. Immediately after, the gigantic millstone was split into two. Although the Great Chaos Essence Palm was destroyed by the Heaven-Slaying Sword Art, the sword chi released by the Heaven-Slaying Sword Art dissipated into the void as well. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Ever since he cultivated the Heaven-Slaying Sword Art, he had been unstoppable and invincible. After he entered the void reversion realm, the might of the sword art was even greater. To think that it was only a draw against the Great Chaos Essence Palm. Of course, it was not because the Heaven-Slaying Sword Art was not strong enough. Su Zimo had obtained the Heaven-Slaying Sword Art less than half a year ago, and he only had 3 months to truly comprehend as well as cultivate it. To put it simply, that sword chi was merely the tip of the iceberg of his comprehension. Not bad. Dean nodded and attacked once more with a cold gaze. Again! Boom! The Great Chaos Essence Palm appeared once more and suppressed down. That was the terror of that secret skill. With Dean's blood chi, physique and Dharmic powers, he could release it almost limitlessly until he ground his opponents to death. Su Zimo was the only one in the world who could hold out for so long. As for the Heaven-Slaying Sword Art, Su Zimo would need a long time to recover after releasing a single sword chi. Oem! Ma! Ni! The Demon Subduing Seal, Fiend Suppression Seal and Immortal Trap Seal were released at the same time. 3 golden palms descended, wanting to block the Great Chaos Essence Palm. Boom! The gigantic millstone in midair collided with the 3 golden palms and ground continuously. The millstone dissipated and the 3 golden palms disappeared as well. The combination of the 3 Dharmic seals and the damning mantra released at the same time was merely enough to defend against the Great Chaos Essence Palm. It did not mean that the damning Dharmic seals could not compare to the Great Chaos Essence Palm. There were a total of 6 damning Dharmic seals that complemented the Mingwang prayer beads. The 2 damning Dharmic seals that were lost were imprinted on the 2 missing Buddha beads. Legend has it that the might of the 2 damning Dharmic seals was the most terrifying. Among the 6 Dharmic seals, they were the most ferocious and powerful. Right now, he could not defend against the crushing power of the Great Chaos Essence Palm with just the first 4 damning Dharmic seals. Before Su Zimo could catch his breath, Di Yin's other hand conjured a gigantic millstone and crushed down as well. Di Yin's attacks were like a violent storm that did not give Su Zimo any chance to catch his breath. Su Zimo did not have time to conjure any Dharmic arts, and could only raise his arms to defend. Bang! The collision between flesh and bones produced a series of jarring sounds. Creak! Creak! It was as though Su Zimo's skeleton was about to be crushed into pieces by the gigantic millstone as he staggered backwards. The clothes on his arms were torn. The flesh on both arms were already minced by the Great Chaos Essence Palm, revealing ghastly white bones that were shocking. An intense pain surged like a tidal wave. Su Zimo sucked in a cold breath of air and grit his teeth. He glared at Dean with a calm expression, his eyes frighteningly bright. The afterglow of the ancient mighty figures was not endless. At that moment, it was already exhausted. In reality, no matter how strong their stamina was, both of them had already reached their limits by this point of the battle. Releasing the Great Chaos Essence Palm consecutively was a huge drain on Dean as well as a huge burden on his body. At that moment, his body was steaming and his continuous outbursts had already caused him to break out in sweat, and his face looked a little pale. However, in comparison, Su Zimo's condition was clearly worse. This made Dean feel slightly relieved and his aura rose continuously. He was prepared to kill Su Zimo in one go. Desolate Marshal, you've used up all your trump cards. Bow down! Dean had already gained the upper hand and was closing in step by step. Circulating his blood chi and Dharmic powers once more, he released the Great Chaos Essence Palm and suppressed down forcefully. Boom! The gigantic millstone appeared once more and spun slowly. The entire void beneath it distorted and was crushed bit by bit. Chapter 1040 Caturadhi Dao Fire. Chapter 1040 Caturadhi Dao Fire. Initially, Su Zimo had intended to fight Dean to a stalemate and exhaust him. Once the creation Green Lotus broke free from the suppression of the Chaos Essence Bell and the dragon battling truncheon, he would be able to regain the upper hand with the creation Green Lotus. However, the current situation was extremely dangerous. Dean would not give him that chance. Although Su Zimo's gaze was cold, there seemed to be 2 balls of flames burning in his eyes. Swoosh! He changed his hand seals repeatedly, and 3 balls of flames appeared beside him. One was scarlet, one was gold, and one was black. The immortal, Buddhist and Fiend Dao fires. After inheriting the Fiend techniques of half-martial Ancestor Imperial Sky, apart from many cultivation techniques, Su Zimo even managed to deduce a black Fiend Dao fire. Samadhi Dao fire was the strongest Dharmic art in the Scarlet Flame Mental Sutra. After Su Zimo redefined it, the Samadhi Dao fire underwent a transformation and its power was even more terrifying and shocking. Back at the Thousand Crane Tea Party, the void reversion of Hellfire Hall was burned to ashes by Su Zimo's Dvyadi Dao fire. At that time, Su Zimo was only at the nascent soul realm and that Dharmic art only had 2 balls of flames. Now that Su Zimo was at the void reversion realm, there were 3 balls of flames around him. It was the true Samadhi Dao fire. Not bad. Although Dean did not recognize the origin of the Samadhi Dao flames, his cultivation was strong and he was sharp. He quickly sensed that the 3 balls of flames were unusual. Your flame Dharmic art can indeed defend against my great Chaos Essence palm. The corners of Dian's lips curled up slightly as he sneered. However, it's merely to defend for a while. Your Dharmic art can't be released continuously in the end, but my great Chaos Essence palm can. Dian was not the only one. Su Zimo had the same judgment. Although his Samadhi Dao fire had been reborn, his cultivation was only at the early stage void reversion realm. With this Dharmic art alone, perhaps, he could only fight evenly against the great Chaos Essence palm that was fused together with Dian's physical strength, blood qi and Dharmic powers. If he wanted to truly threaten Dian, he had to raise the power of that Dharmic art by another level. We'll see if you can even defend against this Samadhi Dao fire, Su Zimo said coldly and pointed forward. The 3 balls of flames that surrounded him suddenly floated towards Dian. Before they even arrived, the 3 balls of flames collided and their power increased exponentially. The entire void was burned and distorted. Even the cultivators watching from afar felt waves of heat surging towards them, let alone Dian who was facing it directly. What a terrifying Dharmic art! Extinguish! Dian's gaze was burning like a torch, and he was oblivious to it. He flipped his great Chaos Essence palm and suppressed the Samadhi Dao flames. Just as the great Chaos Essence palm and Samadhi Dao fire were about to collide, Su Zimo's glabella shone and a red light burst forth, emitting a scorching aura. Essence Spirit Fire. The 4th flame arrived instantly and was injected into the Samadhi Dao fire. The Samadhi Dao fire instantly transformed into a Caturadhi Dao fire. Alongside Su Zimo's cultivation, the might of that Dharmic art also increased exponentially with every additional Dao fire. Now that the Samadhi Dao fire had transformed into the Caturadhi Dao fire, its power had increased exponentially, and its nature had completely changed. Lin Xuanji was sitting on a broken wall at the side to watch the battle. The aftershock of Su Zimo and Dian's collision was extremely threatening to other cultivators. However, it was nothing to him. The reason why he did not go far was because he was worried about Su Zimo. He was thinking that if Su Zimo was defeated in this battle, he could not sit back and do nothing. At most, he would save Su Zimo and continue escaping. However, the moment the Caturadhi Dao fire was formed, the initially nonchalant Lin Xuanji was shocked. Fuck! His expression changed starkly as he leaped up from his spot and fled without hesitation. His movement technique had always been fast. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape for 20 days without losing a single hair under Dian's pursuit. Even so, when he escaped to the vicinity of the crowd, his clothes were already badly burned with countless holes in them. His hair and brows were curled from the heat, and his body was emitting green smoke. If that was the case outside the battlefield, one could imagine how terrifying the might of the Caturadhi Dao fire at the center of the battlefield was. Lin Xuanji turned around in shock. The ruins within a radius of 1,000 feet around Su Zimo and Dian were burned into ashes instantly. Swoosh! Under the great Chaos Essence palm, a ball of 4-colored flames burst forth. Instantly, the gigantic millstone was burned red and turned into lava that flowed down. In the void, flames burned brightly, engulfing Dian's palm, arm, and even his entire body. If the Samadhi Dao fire could only match the power of the great Chaos Essence palm, the Caturadhi Dao fire with the addition of the Essence Spirit fire was enough to kill Dian. Ah! Dian shrieked in the flames. Desolate Marshal! Desolate Marshal! I'm going to kill you! Flames raged and Dian had already turned into a gigantic fireball, waving his arms and roaring furiously. Everyone was shocked when they saw that. Instantly, things changed on the battlefield. No one expected that Dian, who had the absolute advantage earlier on, would be burned by a 4-colored flame in the blink of an eye. In the crowd, everyone's faces were still pale under the illumination of the flames. Their eyes were completely filled with shock. The power of the Caturadhi Dao fire could burn even Khanate Dao being Dharmic weapons into ashes. However, Dian was not burned to death despite the terrifying flames. It was clear how frightening his body was. Dian was still struggling as he channeled his blood qi and Dharmic powers, wanting to suppress the Caturadhi Dao fire. What sort of Dharmic art is that flame? Even Dharma characteristic Dao lords won't be able to escape death if they come, right? Legend has it that Dao Lord Extreme Fire was the #1 in controlling fire back then. I heard that Desolate Marshal inherited his Dao technique. How terrifying! Dean is finished. This flame is relentless and his essence spirit doesn't even have the chance to leave his body. After this battle, Desolate Marshal's reputation will definitely reach its peak as the #1 Dao being in Tianhuang mainland. Things change when they reach an extreme. In my opinion, Desolate Marshal won't be able to live for long. Many cultivators stood at the outer perimeter and looked at the human-shaped fireball in the center of the battlefield from afar with conflicted expressions. Su Zimo's essence spirit withered instantly after he released the essence spirit fire. His essence spirit was already at its limits after the consecutive intense battles. If the Caturadhi Dao fire could not turn defeat into victory, he would not have any trump cards left. Looking at Dean, who was struggling not far away, Su Zimo's expression was cold, and there was no pity in his eyes. He recalled how Ji Qingtian was severely injured after being hunted down by Dean for the past 100 years, as well as Little Fatty's close brush with death. He recalled the scene of Dean striking Solitary Cloud's chest 20 days ago. He recalled that Solitary Cloud was still lying in his storage bag with his life on the line. The rage in Su Zimo's heart intensified. He did not care about Dean's identity, or how strong his backing was. He was not going to leave Dean any chances today. The moment to kill Dean was now. Chapter 1041 Kill. Chapter 1041 Kill. In a flash, Su Zimo closed in on Dean. Although the power of the Caturadhi Dao fire was strong, and its temperature was high enough to incinerate everything, it did not cause Su Zimo any harm. Now that he was closer, Su Zimo could clearly see through the layers of flames that Dean's clothes had already turned into ashes. Under the searing of the Caturadhi Dao fire, his flesh was split open and he gave off a pungent burnt scent. Even so, under the suppression of his powerful blood qi and Dharmic powers, the Caturadhi Dao fire merely burned his flesh without penetrating his bones and organs. A terrifying physique and bloodline. Without the Caturadhi Dao fire, Su Zimo would have no chance of winning if things dragged on. But now, the tables have turned. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly with a murderous intent as he reached out with his gigantic palm. Clenching it into a fist, he punched towards Dean's chest. Roar! Even within the flames, Dean could still sense that someone was attacking him and let out a roar. His throat was filled with smoke and dust. That roar was also hoarse and ear-piercing. Dean swung his arm and welcomed Su Zimo's fist. His spirit consciousness could not detect it at all, and his eyes were already blinded. This counterattack was purely based on his strong combat talent and instincts. Dean is indeed a monster incarnate of the current era. To be able to fight back after being burned to such a state, he's truly strong. That's right. If not for Su Zimo, Dean would have definitely become an existence like the ancient emperors in the future. Many cultivators were filled with emotions when they saw that. Bang! Su Zimo dodged Dean's palm and punched his chest. Dean was burnt to such an extent that his eyes were blinded and his spirit consciousness was crippled. For Su Zimo, who had terrifying melee combat strength, it was way too easy for him to dodge Dean's attack. This punch is for Ji Qingtian. Su Zimo's voice pierced through the flames and sounded in Dean's ears with a cold, killing intent. Dean spat out a mouthful of blood. Before it could splatter in the void, it was incinerated into nothingness by the Caturadhi Dao fire. Dean's chest caved in deeply and a fist mark appeared. Cracks appeared on his sternum after that punch. This punch is for Little Fatty. Taking a step forward, Su Zimo punched out once more in the imprint of the punch earlier on. Bang! Another punch landed heavily on Dean's chest. As though he was struck by lightning, a huge chunk of his chest caved in, and countless ribs shattered into his organs. He coughed out large mouthfuls of blood as foam bubbled in his mouth. Initially, the Caturadhi Dao fire could not break through the defense of his flesh and blood to seep into his bones and organs. However, after 2 consecutive punches, raging flames were already burning towards his organs through the wound on his chest. Dean staggered and swayed, retreating unconsciously. Su Zimo walked towards Dean and raised his fist once more. "This punch is for Solitary Cloud." Su Zimo strode out with the plow heaven stride and landed heavily in front of Dean. Twisting his waist, he gathered all the strength in his body and punched Dean's already collapsed chest. Poof! Dean's chest spewed out an arrow of blood. It was penetrated by Su Zimo's 3 punches. His current outcome was no different from Solitary Cloud. However, his physique was strong and his vitality was way too exuberant. Even though he was severely injured, he could still stand on the spot. Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he glared at Dean, who was covered in flames, and said slowly, "With this final punch, I'll send you on your way." He stretched out his arm that looked weak and feeble like a divine elephant's trunk and flung it towards Dean's head. Swoosh! Su Zimo's palm landed on Dean's head and struck a vicious punch. Crack! 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 Under countless gazes, Dean's head spun a few times on his neck and was almost twisted off. Right then, a beam of light shot into the skies. His essence spirit had exited his body. Even under the searing of the Caturadhi Dao fire, Dean chose to use his essence spirit to escape from his body. His essence spirit was wrapped in a Dharmic robe that shone brightly. It was an essence spirit Dharmic weapon. After Dean's essence spirit broke through the flames, the Dharmic robe on his body could not withstand the heat of the Caturadhi Dao fire, and was ignited in the blink of an eye. His essence spirit Dharmic weapon was destroyed. He threw away the robe hurriedly and his essence spirit escaped. "You're still trying to escape?" Su Zimo sneered and leaped into the air, letting out a sudden roar. "Kill!" The sound domain secret skill, Thunderclap Kill, exploded. Dean's essence spirit shuddered and Su Zimo had already caught up from behind. The latter reached out with his gigantic palm and Dean's essence spirit was trapped within. F-f-f. Dean laughed even though he knew that he would definitely die. "Desolate Marshal, even if you kill me, you won't be able to live for long. You killed so many titular disciples in this Dao inheritance ground and you think you can survive?" Su Zimo's expression was calm and unmoved as he said indifferently, "It's all right. Even if I die, I'll kill you first." After pausing for a moment, Su Zimo thought about it and said, "It would be too easy on you if I kill you right away. I'm curious what opportunities you've obtained. I want all of your opportunities." After saying that, a ball of light appeared in Su Zimo's palm. The ball of light was filled with black fiend chi that resembled chains and locked Dean's essence spirit within. "What are you doing?" Finally, Dean felt a tinge of fear. "Search your soul, of course," Su Zimo said coldly and channeled the soul-searching art without hesitation. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Images flashed through Su Zimo's mind one after another. It began from the start of Dean's cultivation and happened at an extremely fast speed. Su Zimo did not pause at all when he saw the scenes of chi condensation and foundation establishment. In a flash, he looked all the way to the back. He wanted top-secret skills like the Great Chaos Essence Palm and Infinite Saber. The scene changed. In a secret chamber, a middle-aged man sat cross-D. He looked to be no more than 34 years old. However, his eyes were filled with the vicissitudes of time. It was unknown how long he had lived. Dean was kneeling obediently before the middle-aged man. "Today, I'll impart Chaos Essence Sect's strongest secret skill, the Great Chaos Essence Palm, to you," the middle-aged man said slowly. Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he listened intently. All of a sudden, the eyes of the middle-aged man who was initially sitting on a praying mat shone brightly as he looked at the void beside him. Killing intent burst forth from his eyes as he said coldly, "Who are you? How dare you spy on me, D-Fan, imparting the Dao?" Boom! Su Zimo's mind jolted and his soul-searching art stopped. Instantly, he woke up and before he knew it, he was drenched in sweat. His expression was grim as he furrowed his brows in shock. The soul-searching art scoured Di Yin's memories. In other words, those memories were all events that had already happened and were fixed. However, in that memory, the middle-aged man who imparted the Tao to Di Yin was able to awaken and discover his existence. That was way too terrifying. This method had already surpassed Su Zimo's understanding and was even more sinister than the soul-searching art. That was probably a divine power. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo suppressed the distracting thoughts in his mind temporarily, and looked at Di Yin's essence spirit in the ball of light with a cold expression. No matter what, Di Yin would definitely die. Su Zimo closed his palm. Poof! Di Yin's essence spirit was crushed. Dao being chaos essence, Di Yin was dead. Chapter 1042 The Saying of the Human Tripod. Chapter 1042 The Saying of the Human Tripod. The battlefield was desolate. Di Yin's corpse laid quietly on the ruins, lifeless. Many of the cultivators looked at the corpse with agape mouths, unable to recover from their shock. Prior to this, who could have imagined that Tao being chaos essence, Di Yin, would die here? Di Yin had only cultivated for more than 200 years and his achievements were dazzling. He had even obtained the inheritance of the human emperor, and was lauded as the #1 monster incarnate of Chaos Essence sect and even Tianhuang mainland. He was once the #1 of the phenomenon ranking. He had killed countless enemies that were way above his cultivation realm. Even among the titular disciples, no one was willing to go against him. However, even such a monster incarnate had fallen. In this lifetime, Chaos Essence sect not only produced Di Yin, but Yi Tiancheng as well. They were lauded as the Chaos Essence twin paragons. Almost everyone thought that with these two paragons, Chaos Essence sect would become the leader of the immortal sects before long. Initially, Thousand Cranes sect master wanted to sacrifice Ling Ro as Yi Tiancheng's Dao companion because she saw Chaos Essence sect's potential. But now, the Chaos Essence twin paragons had already become a thing of the past. Within a single year, both paragons were killed one after another by the same person. Throughout history, there were countless paragons. However, there were very few that could truly reach the end and stand at the peak of Tianhuang mainland. Every paragon would encounter endless dangers in their growth. If they died prematurely, they would be forgotten before long. Even their traces left behind would be washed clean by the sands of time. The moment Dao being Chaos Essence, Di Yin, died, a total of 8 titular disciples had fallen here. The Dao inheritance ground had become the burial ground for this generation's titular disciples. In the ruins, a green-robed figure stood beside Di Yin's corpse. He did not look strong. In fact, he looked frail and possessed refined features. However, no one dared to look down on him. Desolate Marshal! To rise through the ranks by trampling on the corpses of 8 titular disciples. There had probably never been a monster incarnate with such methods and boldness throughout history. Desolate Marshal wishes to establish a Tao and impart martial arts to all living beings. The 14 words that sounded in the Tao inheritance ground earlier on rang within the minds of the cultivators present in a deafening manner. Perhaps, if this person did not die, he might really be able to impart martial arts to all living beings and change the fate of Tianhuang mainland. Perhaps, Tianhuang mainland would welcome another golden era that was no weaker than the ancient era. The same thoughts surfaced in the minds of many cultivators. How is it? Are you all right? Lin Xuanji ran over. When he saw that Su Zimo was silent, he extended his palm and waved it in front of him. Su Zimo nodded. The soul-searching art was interrupted, and he could not obtain the Great Chaos Essence palm and other secret skills. Of course, that did not matter. However, when he recalled the terrifying gaze of the middle-aged man during the soul search, his heart throbbed. He could not explain it clearly. It was like a sudden impulse, and he had a feeling that a catastrophe was imminent. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo suppressed that feeling temporarily and kept the creation green lotus. He paused and pondered for a moment. Seemingly thinking of something, he retrieved the creation green lotus from his consciousness and held it in his palm. Now that Di Yin was dead, the Chaos Essence spell and the Dragon Battling Truncheon became ownerless. Su Zimo put away the 2 Khanate Dharmic weapons in the yin storage bag. "You've really struck gold this time round." Lin Xuanji gave him a thumbs up secretly. "Not only did you survive the calamity, you even obtained so many treasures." Putting aside the storage bags of these titular disciples, their destiny Dharmic weapons alone were extraordinary. "Brother Lin, I can't thank you enough for your kindness. I'll definitely keep this gratitude in my heart," Su Zimo said with cupped fists. Lin Xuanji waved it off and chuckled. "What kind of relationship do we have? We were people who barged into the dragon's lair together back then." The two of them exchanged glances and smiled. Only the two of them understood what he meant. Back then, in order to avoid the pursuit of the Blood Crow Palace's lord, Su Zimo accidentally barged into the Dragon Bone Valley and met Lin Xuanji by chance. "Brother Su, is there something on your mind?" Lin Xuanji was meticulous, and could not help but ask when he saw the worry in Su Zimo's eyes. Su Zimo sighed gently. "I have to meet someone." "Who?" Lin Xuanji asked. Su Zimo replied. "The pure maiden of the Fiend sections." The pure maiden of the Fiend sex was Demoness Ji. "Her?" Lin Xuanji raised his brows and revealed an enlightened expression. "She sacrificed herself for her human tripod. It's only right for you to visit her." "You know about the human tripod?" Su Zimo was slightly surprised. "I know a little," Lin Xuanji said. "Ordinary human tripods refer to young girls used by cultivators of the heretical path to absorb being essence for cultivation. However, the human tripod of the Fiend sex pure maiden sect is completely different. According to what I know, among the 7 Fiend sects, Cloud Rain sect adheres to the Tao of indulgence. Men and women do not follow the rules of etiquette and copulate in their natural states. Yin and Yang are interconnected and heaven and earth are joined. The only rule is that they must not invest their personal emotions into it. On the other hand, the Pure Maiden sect is the exact opposite. They practice the Tao of extinguishing their desires. Every generation's Pure Maiden can choose a man as their human tripod. While they can fall in love with the man, they must not possess any lust towards him. By cultivating with the help of the human tripod, the Pure Maiden of the Fiend sex will temper her Tao heart continuously to increase her cultivation. The Pure Maiden of the Fiend sex can harm anyone in the world but her human tripod. Furthermore, her power will dissipate the moment she has any lust for the human tripod. If she uses the sacrificial method, her power will be transferred to the human tripod." After saying that, Lin Xuanji lamented. "The Pure Maiden of this generation's Fiend sex is probably ruined. The price is way too high." In the battle 20 days ago, Demoness Ji sacrificed herself, and Su Zimo's body recovered. His Dharmic powers surged and he managed to escape from the encirclement of the 5 titular disciples. As for herself, her cultivation was destroyed and she was reduced to a mortal. Even if her Tao heart was acknowledged by the powerful beings of Pure Maiden sect, it was useless. Su Zimo's eyes were filled with guilt and self-blame. Initially, he knew nothing about those things. He only understood the meaning of the Pure Maiden sex human tripod through the inheritance of half-martial ancestor Imperial Sky. Unfortunately, it was too late even if he knew. The obsession of the Fiend sex had actually reached such a state. On paper, it sounded easy to maintain emotions without any lust. However, it was extremely difficult in real life. The deeper one's emotions were, the harder it would be to contain one's lust. It was completely contradictory to human nature. "No matter what, I have to find her," Su Zimo said. "This is the Tao inheritance ground where cultivators are everywhere. She will definitely be in danger if she loses all her powers. Let's go. I'll accompany you to take a look." Lin Xuanji patted Su Zimo on the shoulder and consoled. "Don't worry, as long as she's still in the inheritance of the Demoness stone statue, nothing will happen to her." Without saying anything more, the two of them disappeared in a flash. Chapter 1043 Dharmic Dao. Chapter 1043 Dharmic Dao. The Dao inheritance ground was not big. Su Zimo treated his wounds briefly and sped along with Lin Xuanji, arriving at the location of the Demoness Stone statue before long. The moment he arrived, Su Zimo's expression changed. The Demoness Stone statue that was initially standing there had already collapsed and shattered into pieces. Demoness Ji had vanished. He was a step too late. Su Zimo's expression turned extremely terrible. Every single inheritance stone statue left behind by conjoined body mighty figures possessed the power of a mighty figure and was indestructible. There was no way anyone could disturb the inheritance process. The greatest possibility was that someone destroyed the Demoness Stone statue after the inheritance ended and snatched Demoness Ji away. Don't worry. Lin Xuanji looked around and said in a deep voice. There's no signs of a fight or blood at the scene. Dao being pure maiden should be fine. Let's search the vicinity first. The two of them searched separately. Su Zimo's essence spirit took an immense toll after the consecutive battles. However, he still tried his best to extend his spirit consciousness and searched carefully. Before long, he stopped in his tracks and shuddered. Not far ahead, a girl in pink was walking towards him. She had a graceful figure and light steps. Her bright eyes were smiling and she exuded a charming aura that could stir one's heart. Who else could that be if it wasn't Demoness Ji? When he saw that Demoness Ji was fine, Su Zimo finally heaved a sigh of relief and could not help but laugh. Looking at Su Zimo, who was not far away, Demoness Ji smiled with extreme joy and a tender expression. Walking forward, Su Zimo realized that Demoness Ji's cultivation had not decreased at all. She was still at early stage void reversion. How did you? Su Zimo was puzzled but did not know how to broach the topic. Demoness Ji saw through Su Zimo's confusion with a single glance and said with a smile, You want to ask why my cultivation is still intact, and why I haven't been reduced to a mortal despite the sacrifice? Su Zimo nodded. Initially, I lost all my cultivation because of the human tripod sacrifice, Demoness Ji said. However, it was also a blessing in disguise as it triggered the inheritance of the pure maiden stone statue. Not only did I recover my cultivation completely, I even obtained the complete pure maiden sutra. At that point, Su Zimo was finally relieved. Hey, do you know? For ordinary sacrifices, even if I lose all my powers, the human tripod will only be able to inherit 70% of it. A fragrant breeze blew over and Demoness Ji suddenly closed in, almost pressing herself against Su Zimo's body as she said softly, There's a Dharmic formulation that allows a human tripod to inherit 100% of my powers. Do you know what that is? If it was before, Su Zimo would have pushed Demoness Ji away or avoided her. However, this time round, he did not move at all. On the one hand, he felt guilty towards Demoness Ji. On the other hand, it was also because after he understood the meaning of the human tripod, he knew that Demoness Ji was merely bluffing and would not do anything out of line. What? Su Zimo asked instinctively. Demoness Ji smiled charmingly and crawled to Su Zimo's ear. Exhaling gently, she said, Dual cultivation. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he almost lost control of his Dao heart. He praised internally. Compared to 20 days ago, Demoness Ji's bewitching skills were clearly even more terrifying. Stop fooling around. Su Zimo smiled bitterly with a helpless expression. I'm not, Demoness Ji said. After obtaining the complete Pure Maiden Sutra, I found out there's a Dharmic formulation that allows dual cultivation with a human tripod. Not only would I retain my powers, they will even increase. Pausing for a moment, Demoness Ji chuckled. Furthermore, it's good for you as well. Swoosh. Su Zimo felt as though a ball of flames had risen within his body, and he could not suppress it at all. He hurriedly took a few steps back and distanced himself from Demoness Ji. Against such a peerless beauty that could topple all living beings and bewitch the world, who could withstand her whispering and charming seduction? Su Zimo took a few deep breaths to compose himself. Prior to this, Demoness Ji had teased him like that as well. However, at that time, he could vaguely sense that she was merely joking. But now, he had an illusion that Demoness G truly wanted to eat him. That dual cultivation Dharmic formulation was extremely likely to be true. If his will was slightly weakened, he might truly end up veering off the wrong path with Demoness G. Hee, look at how scared you are. Demoness G laughed. Su Zimo changed the topic hurriedly. Why are you here? I only finished the inheritance process not too long ago and exited the Demoness Stone statue, so I headed to the Three Tribulations domain first. Demoness G said. I only found out when I got there that you had already fought with Dean. By the time I arrived, you were already gone. I guessed that you would come looking for me and returned. Say, I don't really mean to disturb you guys. Not far away, on a green rock, Lin Xuanji stood against the wind and could not help but say. But I've been standing here for so long. Can the two of you even take a look at me? Su Zimo blushed. He was truly distracted by Demoness G and did not notice Lin Xuanji. Demoness G pursed her lips into a smile and bowed towards Lin Xuanji. Thank you for saving Zimo, fellow Taoist Xuanji. I'm here to thank you. Lin Xuanji waved it off and avoided Demoness G's gaze hurriedly. Seemingly wary, he coughed gently and said, You guys had better study what to do after leaving this place. Brother Su, you've killed 8 titular disciples. These 8 titular disciples represent 8 super sects. Lin Xuanji said in a deep voice. It's fine if you're in the Dao inheritance ground since even conjoined body mighty figures won't be able to make a move. However, if you leave, the 8 super sects will definitely not let you off. If there's really no other way, we can hide here for a while. Demoness G suggested. Su Zimo nodded. He could afford to wait, but Solitary Cloud in his storage bag could not. The life preservation elixir could keep Solitary Cloud alive for a month at most. Now, 20 days had passed. He had to return to Tianhuang mainland and try his best to save Solitary Cloud's life. Perhaps Elixir Yang sect might have some elixir that could revive Solitary Cloud. As though he could read Su Zimo's mind, Lin Xuanji asked. You're still thinking about that WIRM? Su Zimo remained silent. Lin Xuanji sighed. In my opinion, that WIRM can't be saved anymore. Even in Elixir Yang sect, there's no elixir that can revive it. I have to try. Su Zimo murmured softly and fell into deep thought. Middle Continent, Chaos Essence sect. Suddenly, an extremely furious roar sounded from a cave abode deep within the sect. It was filled with a domineering might and cold-killing intent, causing the surrounding mountains and ravines to fall into a dead silence. Firmament Arrival, get over here! An icy voice sounded. Chaos Essence sect master, mighty figure Firmament Arrival, shuddered and hurried towards the back mountain of the sect. Chapter 1044 Arrival of the Great Calamity. Chapter 1044 Arrival of the Great Calamity. Arriving at a cave abode at the back mountain, Firmament Arrival, despite his status as the master of a sect and was at the conjoined body realm, did not dare to be disrespectful and bowed. Elder D, weren't you in seclusion? What happened? Boom! There was a deafening sound. The door of the cave abode was shattered by a terrifying force and countless boulders smashed onto Firmament Arrival. However, Firmament Arrival did not dare to dodge and merely bowed slightly. A purple-robed figure walked out slowly with a burning gaze and a tremendous might emanating from his body. Even the conjoined body mighty figure, Firmament Arrival, almost could not withstand it and knelt on the ground. This was Chaos Essence Sect's Grand Elder, a half-martial ancestor expert, Defan. Seclusion? Defan's expression was dark as he said slowly. If I continue my seclusion, I'm afraid Chaos Essence Sect will be destroyed. Let me ask you, is Dean still alive? When he heard that, Firmament Arrival was terrified and drenched in sweat. Elder Dean. Firmament Arrival hesitated for a moment, and swallowed his saliva before saying, He's already dead. Su Zimo, none other than Desolate Marshal who had just established his Dao, killed him in the Dao inheritance ground. Firmament Arrival hurriedly recounted the various news regarding the Dao inheritance ground. Indeed! Difan's gaze turned cold. Initially, he was indeed in seclusion. However, he was alarmed the moment Su Zimo searched Dian's soul. Elder D, please calm down, Firmament Arrival said hurriedly. That lad, Desolate Marshal, has the protection of 100 Refinement Sect. We've already made contact with Heavenly Dipper Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Malevolent Earth Sect, Formless Monastery, and other sections. We're prepared to join forces to kill our way into 100 Refinement Sect and slaughter Desolate Marshal. A blood debt must be paid with blood. Why is it so troublesome to kill avoid reversion? Difan said coldly. How long would it take to join forces with the other sects? What if something unexpected happens during this period of time and that lad manages to escape? I want him dead right now. Dian's death triggered Difan's killing intent. Firmament Arrival smiled bitterly. Elder D, that lad is still in the Dao inheritance ground right now. That place is guarded by the wills of many ancient mighty figures, and it's impossible to penetrate with the power of conjoined body mighty figures. We can only wait for him to return to Tianhuang mainland before making a move. Is that so? Difan narrowed his eyes. Firmament Arrival's heart skipped a beat as he vaguely realized something and exclaimed, Elder D, are you going to? At the same time, 100 Refinement Sect. What? Dean is dead? Everyone from 100 Refinement Sect was shocked when they heard the news. Even though Su Zimo was at the Void Reversion realm, everyone felt that it was almost impossible for him to kill Dean. Between them, while victory could be determined, it would be way too difficult for them to kill one another. Even Extreme Fire did not expect Dean to be killed by Su Zimo at the Dao inheritance ground. Including Dean, 8 of the titular disciples had already died in Su Zimo's hands. Previously, when 6 titular disciples died, Dao Lord White Flames, Dao Lord Scarlet Star, and the others had grim expressions and were filled with worries. Now that 8 titular disciples were dead, it meant that if 100 Refinement Sects still dared to protect Su Zimo, they would have to endure the wrath of 8 super sects. The Dao inheritance ground. Su Zimo, Lin Xuanji, and Demonis Ji were already prepared to leave. Brother Su, why are you still holding the creation Green Lotus? Who else would dare to provoke you in this Dao inheritance ground? When Lin Xuanji saw that Su Zimo was still holding the creation Green Lotus and swinging it around, he could not help but purse his lips and ask. Su Zimo smiled without explaining. He could not help but feel uneasy, and could only calm down if he held the creation Green Lotus. Suddenly he stopped in his tracks. His spirit perception alerted him and an unprecedented sense of danger descended, causing his scalp to tingle and his heart to almost jump out of his chest. His previous uneasiness was merely a hunch. But this time round, Su Zimo could truly smell the scent of death. It was more terrifying than any danger he had experienced before. The skies above the Dao inheritance ground suddenly darkened. At that moment, every cultivator in the Dao inheritance ground felt their hearts skip a beat. An extremely terrifying might coiled in the skies, as though it was searching for something. In the blink of an eye, it locked onto its location. This was a power that came from outside the Dao inheritance ground. Demonis Ji was shocked. This is the Dao inheritance ground. How is that possible? Lin Xuanji's eyes widened as though he had suddenly recalled something. He could not continue as his eyes shone with fear. Without hesitation, Su Zimo pushed Demonis Ji and Lin Xuanji away. At the same time, he waved the creation Green Lotus in his right hand and injected Dharmic powers into it while slapping his storage bag with his left hand. Swoosh! The creation Green Lotus rose from the ground and burst forth with a jade-green glow, streaking towards the firmaments. The gigantic lotus leaves blotted out the skies, and the thick stem of the lotus was like a stone pillar that connected the heavens and earth. Snap! Suddenly, a crack appeared in the skies. Immediately after, a gigantic palm tore through the firmaments, and crushed down with a supreme might as though it wanted to destroy the world. The entire Dao inheritance ground trembled and swayed. The void around the gigantic palm collapsed inch by inch and cracks appeared. Even this space could not withstand the impact of that power. How terrifying was a power that even the void could not withstand. That gigantic palm only had a single target, Su Zimo, who was on the ground. At that moment, every cultivator in the Dao inheritance ground saw the gigantic palm and shuddered in shock with frightened expressions. That power was way too terrifying. Even Dharma characteristic Dao lords and conjoined body mighty figures would be destroyed both physically and in spirit by the suppression of that power, let alone void reversion Dao beings. And no! Demonisji felt chills run down her spine as she looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away, and cried weakly. Lin Xuanji looked at the descending palm and recalled his master's words. His master had once told him sternly that Su Zimo would face a calamity upon entering the Dao inheritance ground. At that time, he did not take it to heart. He thought that Su Zimo would tide through the calamity after he got through the titular disciples or Diin. It was only now that he realized that the palm before them was Su Zimo's calamity. The power of the conjoined body realm could not penetrate the barrier of the Dao inheritance ground. If this palm could penetrate the Dao inheritance ground to suppress down, there was only a single possibility. A terrifying expert beyond the conjoined body realm had attacked. When he realized that, a look of sorrow and mockery flashed through Lin Xuanji's eyes. The most tragic thing was that Su Zimo was already dead for sure with the attack of such a terrifying expert. To Lin Xuanji, the irony was that in order to kill Su Zimo and suppress his growth, an expert who had surpassed the conjoined body realm was willing to give up his dignity and attack a void reversion. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.